11. We'll open the meeting, January 18th. First item, minutes of December 7th. I couldn't get through January 4th, so difficult.
I even made a mistake on it.
Well, maybe she showed up.
I
Would have been all right. You know,
Joe caught it.
okay, I make a motion to accept the 7th of December and January 4th. Any questions, comments?
Second.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
What was the mistake?
I just didn't finish them. I had started them and I...
Because they were so long?
No, something happened. I didn't do the second and the actual vote on the second vote.
Okay, I'm gonna do the easy ones quick. Lost Brook Trail, extension of time, what's that about? Is that something that's been filed?
I'm sorry?
What's Lost
It's
Brook?
brand new, maybe.
That's
Does
Ted
it
Hagel.
have a
What?
one?
Ted Hagel.
Oh. We have a request from Ted Hagler, extension of Lost Brook Trail up through January 23rd, 2021. You want to make it to the end of January?
It would be easier if you did.
Yeah, we'll make it through the, you know,
31st.
31st of January
Yeah.
2021, because you never
Can we
know.
go there?
Yep. 3 years.
We make it long, but, you know, we need that extra time, those 7 days, just in case something happens 3 years out.
No, I think you meant 3. Meaning
From
3 years,
when
yeah.
he
Yeah.
filed
Okay.
it or something.
Okay, and it's for a subdivision he already has, so, for the Form F coming. Any questions? I'll make that a formal motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? There it is. All right, get that one done. Atlantic Court,
Same thing. It's
thought he was all done.
Larry Stern.
Okay,
And what's that, an extension to?
Atlantic Court,
I think it's till April. I don't-
yeah, because the bond's 2 years unless you give an extension. So,
April 30th of this year.
no, because that doesn't meet town meeting.
The what?
He wants it through, April 1st. Yeah, okay, we might have to have it released by then, so, yeah, I'll make a motion to allow Atlantic Court extension up through April 1st, 2018, as he needs to get the grass stabilized around the drainage basin.
Second.
A second. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Just a simple bond extension, and what else do we
Thank you.
got? GG's, what are we voting for GG's?
It's really nothing. It's just do this one next year. I don't know what I do with that one.
Oh, GG's we don't do?
This is GG's.
Oh. That's Sully was working. GG's wait. There's no vote required.
No, that's the one that the
Roll
board
call
wanted to
required.
know if Landis wanted anything from us. That's her response.
I don't want to violate the open meeting law, it's a vote required.
If necessary.
It doesn't even say if necessary.
If necessary.
All right, Gigi's Way. This is yours, Joe, your neighborhood. Let's see, I'm not, is there anything else you want from us? And she said she's not sure, as it's finding a bit difficult working with the two owners of the land under one order of conditions, and now that the ground is frozen, there should be less issues.
Well, what happens when the ground is unfrozen?
Then both guys rise out, I guess, I don't know. That's what it sounds like, that they're frozen in the ground.
Up from the ground.
So, that was just for note, for Joe. Yeah. Well, he's the one, you're the one for GG's, right?
Well,
When this started with
I
Landis.
think the last time, weren't they in here, Whitman Homes owns everything, correct? But
Yeah.
they, on GG, including GG.
No, they can, as soon as they get bonded, they could have sold it.
So how do we know that this is sold and we have the right person? Is this them going before the Conservation Commission?
Not that one.
Not that one?
Next one. After that.
Or this is just Landis telling us that
Hancock?
she doesn't have a problem anymore at this particular time.
I believe you asked at the time, she said she was having an issue and you wanted to know if she was looking for anything from us. And
Not on that.
this is her response that Jack just read.
Yeah, it was just something regarding some erosion issues, that was it.
What did we get? Didn't we get something, that said they were looking for gentlemen's quarters or something?
That's
Does
the next
anyone else
one.
remember that? Okay,
Request for comments.
okay.
Okay. And that's not in here, right?
It's at the end, request for comments.
So no vote?
Oh, down, yeah, no vote.
Nope.
And we had from Hancock Court. So no vote on GG's.
No comments there, right?
Maggie's punch list, she pointed out that there is a,
Don't say it. I know you want to. Do not say it.
by the Ascension Bond, before the home owners put up a fence different than what is shown. So I'm asking the board if they will accept the fence as it is already.
I'm not so I honest to God don't know if Landis has an issue, but what they did, it showed up, I think what was supposed to be around the retention pond was a split rail fence or something like that. The owners put in a 6-foot white solid fence around it to make it look like it's just to fence it off. And that's not what was supposed to be there. So basically I told them, I said, to me, that's too different from what was supposed to be there. So they need to get it waived, or have the board declare that it's a field modification, and then you can deal with it that way.
What is the fence that was supposed to be there? We don't put split rail fences. Who put it there?
Wood guardrail, excuse me.
It's a
Wood
guardrail.
guardrail, yeah.
And this is a pretty fence, as I said.
It's a 6-foot white vinyl fence. To
Pretty
basically
fence.
fence it off so you can't see it.
It's a pretty fence that does
Yeah.
nothing other than if you hit it, it's gonna,
The purpose of the guardrail was to keep people out?
Yeah, was the
Typically, that's what
was the guardrail specifically protective in this case?
The basin is not parallel to the street. It's set back, in back of where the sidewalk would be if there was a sidewalk on that side. Sometimes they'll put it just for safety, sometimes it's if it's along the road, it's for vehicular safety.
That's what I was gonna ask, is this situation that it's meant to, obviously it's not gonna stop a car that's going 40 miles an hour.
No, it's not even
but
gonna
is
stop
it-
somebody. If you really ran into it, you could probably damage it. I'm not sure if the folks that put it up because they wanted to fence it off so people couldn't get at it, but at the same time, you can't see it to know whether it needs maintenance or anything. But if that's what the people wanted, and that's what Kevin wanted to put up, and he can get the permission,
Yeah, okay.
so if you have to get at it, you walk around the end of the fence and the.
There was no safety issue involved with it other than?
No,
okay.
no.
so it comes down to, this was shown on our plan. There's a
The guardrail was shown on the plan, and they put up a different kind of fence. But in all honesty, they may have asked, and you might check with Dave while he's here, the homeowners may have asked what they could put up, and they may have been told they could put this up. Unfortunately, they
Well,
asked the wrong people.
but they can ask whatever they want, but if
Yeah.
it's on the, there's a difference between a guardrail.
Yeah.
So is this on town property, or is
No,
this on their property?
no, it's on the
their-
private property, but it's part of, the reason why Kevin as the developer would have been responsible is because it's part of the roadway and utilities. So it was incumbent upon him as the builder of the subdivision, including the detention basin, to put the fence up. However, before he'd go to put the fence up, the homeowners put up what's
Okay,
there.
let's use the correct terminology, guardrail, not
Yeah.
fence. It wasn't a split rail, it was a regular
It
wood
was
guardrail.
it says wood guardrail, so yeah, it would have been like a, probably 6x6 post
So
or a
this is on the
4x4
people, this
post.
is,
It's
so
on private
people having to
property.
put their own fence up. Okay? What does everybody think?
Did Landis give you any kind of information on that? I don't know whether she had an issue with it, is not, because you can't.
No.
Okay.
If it's not a safety issue, does anyone have an issue with it? I would think the reason for the guardrail would be safety.
Is there any maintenance required from the homeowner
On
for
the
this?
detention basin, there would be, from time to time, yeah.
From the homeowner, not the town?
I believe in this case, once Kevin turns it over, I think that's who the maintenance is incumbent upon, is whoever that lawn owner is.
This is, I
There's
should know
sort
the
of a
answer to
safety
this.
issue in reverse, though, because if you have this 6-foot fence around this basin, if there's ever any water in it, and there's ever anything going on, you're not gonna see it. Not at all.
Is this, I should know this, I'm sorry, but is this near a street? Is it right, is it,
It's set back a little bit, but not a lot. It's maybe a few feet back, like right at the back of sidewalk, and then it goes in. It doesn't run along the street, it runs in from the street, along the back of these folks' property
Okay.
line.
because a guardrail will help a lot with glancing vehicles. Like, if you're coming straight
Yeah.
at, it doesn't matter.
No.
But if you are glancing, it will glance you
No,
back,
if somebody hits that, they're well
not.
off the road. In either case, they're well off the road.
Oh, they're well off the road
Yeah,
anyway.
you're behind,
Okay.
if there was a sidewalk on that side, they're beyond that. They're probably, the sidewalk, if there was a sidewalk, the back of the sidewalk would be 10 feet back from the curb line.
Okay,
So
so
they're at
that's-
least that far back.
That's moot. They're already in trouble if they hit that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the only issue is
Mm.
then, you can't see if there's a problem.
And it's completely enclosed? So there must be a
No, it's
gateway.
enclosed on, the back of the detention basin, I believe, it has a wall, and the basin's in front of the wall, and the fence is around the front of the basin. So there's nothing on the back because there's a stone wall there.
Okay.
So if you have to get to the basin, all you have to do is walk around the end of the fence in behind a tree, and you can get in there. I
Okay.
mean, somebody has to get in with a wheelbarrow and tools, you
So-
can do it.
If somebody fell in there accidentally or something,
If
you
somebody
can-
fell in there accidentally and they were behind the fence, you wouldn't see them.
But if,
And if the
You'd have to go
water-
around.
If the water level went up and somebody fell in, no one would see from,
Wouldn't see them.
you'd have to go look.
You would have to know to go look. Now, the only thing I don't know is, has it ever held a substantial amount of water for a long period of time? More than likely not, but who knows, because we're not there all the time. My biggest issue was, it was substantially different from what was on the plan.
We don't know why it was on the plan that way, so we have to,
It probably goes back 10, 15 years when this subdivision was proposed, and back then, they used to, nowadays, it's not as big of a thing, people putting fences around them, because usually they're not always right near the road. If they
Right.
are, then you put a guardrail, then you have to have a highway guardrail,
so now you might not even have a requirement.
potentially.
Okay.
Okay, from the legal perspective, very simple. He can put a fence, they can do whatever what they want, as long as it's within the zoning, it has nothing to do with us. They can, you know, you can drown in a pond and we're not gonna see them.
Right.
So the fence, Sully's making this part of the way to get out of it, that's all. There's a fence there. The other one's a guardrail. The guardrail's put there when it was approved, right? Just like everything else,
Yeah.
Brush Hill had the same. He's, as a matter of fact, he's an extension of Brush Hill.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's when it was put there. So what we have on our plan right now was an approved plan with a wood guardrail. So it'll be up to the board to determine that they don't need it. That's how it comes down. Just take the plastic fence aside, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, so.
Yeah, so we're talking about guardrail or no guardrail.
Correct.
Fences.
But the fence is whatever they want to
Okay.
do, so.
and there's room to put
So
the
that means
guardrail
if
in
we-
front of the fence.
Could, you could, it might not be aesthetically pleasing, but you could. You just set it in front of it.
So what you're saying is they could take that fence down, and it would, if we voted tonight, they don't need the guardrail, they could take the fence down, and that would be that.
And they do
And the-
nothing.
You gotta understand, the
Because
guardrail
there's
is
no-
for the
nothing in
cars,
writing.
has nothing to do with
Yeah.
people, they can just hop over and roll down the hill, that's the reason the guardrail's there.
It's
The
at
fence
least
is the
stop 'em.
homeowner's individual. We have a plan with a guardrail on, it was submitted as that, it was approved as that, it was agreed upon that. We just happen to have a fence right near it. So, now it's a matter of whether you wanna consider waiving it now or not, that's
How
all.
long's it been there?
At least since a year ago. It was, I don't know if it was, let me see, 2000, it was probably put in either 16 or 17.
And do you think it was just a matter of the homeowner had no idea there was supposed to be a guardrail?
I don't know if the homeowner knew, because it would have been a responsibility Kevin Sullivan would have been under.
Better make that
Something
decision.
tells me that we heard that the homeowner asked, and I don't know if he asked the building commissioner's office what he could put up. He definitely didn't, I don't know who was asked. I think the homeowners approached somebody, but I don't know who they approached.
But
They didn't approach us.
He's got it on his land, so we don't care.
It's on the lot
We don't care what he
itself.
puts up.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do
Right,
with this
right, right.
board. What we're wrestling with now is we have a plan that showed it, there was some reason for it, and you being the reviewer, and you were there for this, you can make the call. Is it required? Not required on the plan, is it needed? How's that?
If you want, we could take a look and We didn't, when we looked at this requirement, when I wrote this letter, I didn't look at it in terms of that.
Okay.
If that's what your concern is, I will look at it and just see if it looks like it would, if a car went off the road, it would stop the car, but it would, it would slow a car down, it probably wouldn't stop it.
I would think we would
And that may
have-
have been why they put it, but it's been enough years that I don't remember what went through the hearing process.
I would think we would have a liability issue.
Well,
If
it
it was
depends.
required and you waived it and then there was an issue.
No, it's not, remember, we don't have rules and regs on that, that's where the designers come in and you do
Yeah.
your review with them, so at the time, it seemed to be needed. Now, whether you think it's needed or not, or whatever, so, you wanna look at it before? All right,
Before you
so
vote, I
you
can
made
do
a
that.
determination for it in
Yep.
your, what do you call it?
Professional judgment.
Professional stamp there, whether you
Will
need
do.
it there or not. And the plastic fence is irrelative, I assume it's
Okay.
plastic, 'cause it's a nice white vinyl, so.
You don't wanna keep that in,
I just
just for an example, wonderfully better.
Well, I could have thrown it away, it says, we don't have that. Okay, Olmsted. All right, we have a bond reduction for Olmsted. Okay, Maggie, what have they proposed to do at the ski jump coming on to Fisher Street? A little,
They're going, when they top the road, they'll be able to just put more top and just level it out some.
all right, then, one of the things is we're gonna need a plan for them to show that. They just can't change the plan, change the grades.
You're just talking this much.
No, not coming out like that. I've had enough people tell me, between Olmsted, here, Nelson up there,
Okay,
they
I can
ask
tell
me.
them now.
Yeah, because the problem's gonna be is, guess what? I'm gonna hear, what, it was on the plan, that's the way we did it, and that's it, and then we go to residence hearing, and then it goes to town meeting, and they're all up in arms. And remember, it's not just gonna be the 11 Olmsteds now, it's gonna be the other 28 coming out for Ross Commons, because that thing jumps up, so they'd have to revise something. My further recommendation, I'm not gonna reduce any more bond until that's put on plan.
Whatever you want.
Because that thing just, if anybody's been up there, you don't notice it coming in, but coming out, you gotta kinda climb up the fissure to get out.
Oh, I know what you mean.
But anybody else on the board, so. We'll request to reduce the bond, and you see your figures here. You want it reduced to 458, is that correct?
That's correct. If you're going to reduce the bond to an amount, that's the
Okay.
amount you want.
Yeah, that's the way we do it, yeah. What's left to do? That's the way you show it. You calculate. what-
That's the spreadsheet documents what the amount of work that's left, the items that are left.
All right, I'll make a motion to reduce the bond to 400, I'll say 458,000.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? They don't get any money back because it's an insurance bond, so. And I don't think the extra $358.52 will make a difference, so.
Just out of a question, though, the constant construction equipment going over that road to get into the next development, if there's any, should we hold back enough to,
What you got, well, this discussion's been had, and this is the whole thing, and I'm gonna tell you, when I
Right.
sat here all those nights and I got knocked over by, including our town council, is the fact that I knew this was gonna be a problem. So what could happen, very simple, is PJ Hayes, and they can come in, says, we're all set, goes up and inspects it, and then 2 weeks later, while they're building Ross Commons, they destroy the road. We are on the hook for it.
is there anything we can do to remedy the fact that we don't want to be on the hook?
There's no way. Because that's one of the discussions I tried to have, and I'm serious, I got shut off. Because I know enough about this stuff. When you only have one way in and one way out for a 28 lot subdivision, it's gonna get chewed up. And when that one was like a year and a half ahead, so now what's gonna happen is, one day it may be perfect, it may last for a whole month. Maggie says it's all released, and we release it, and the next day, the thing goes kaput. Then it's up to the town to go after.
Can you come up with an alternative to that?
The only alternative to that is to hold money or to some way keep a bond on it, but I don't know legally, I don't know how you keep a bond on the front, on the Olmsted subdivision. Because what the scenario would be, they'll go in whenever they get to it, do their top course paving, and hopefully not wait too long to put it out for the town for street acceptance. So there'll be two issues. There'll be the period between which you release the bond and it gets accepted, and then we accept it. So you've got the interim period, and then we own it. Meanwhile, you've got vehicles going over it. So the issue is,
You can't hold it legally, you can't hold it based on the other project?
I doubt it, I doubt it.
No.
We can't say what if
Yeah.
this happens, if this happens.
And then proving that the hard part will be, it'll be more, unless it's a catastrophic failure that happens all at once, like a sunken something, it's wear and tear that happens that could be greatly accelerated by all those extra vehicles going in and out.
Well, based upon the delay of the gas line, that should have been in this year. It never happened because they're waiting for Whitman Homes to do it. That never happened. So this whole thing, that's the only reason why that wasn't finished, is because of that. Because the gas line wasn't put in, and now he's gonna have to weave in and out of that, and then he'll put the sidewalk. So Hayes isn't very sure, you know, once he does the gas line, it's over. And then he can just put the sidewalks in, pave it, and be out of there. Which, that could happen.
They've got to put cement
Like
concrete sidewalks in there, so we're not gonna be very wanting to let them wreck those. Once they're in, because they're expensive to fix.
Yeah.
We can't hold the next developer responsible for the damages that occurred in the front
You
part.
have to prove it. You'd have to prove that
We
they
prove it's
did
not
it.
regular wear and tear.
No, there
Ponderance
is a
of the
way,
evidence.
there is a way I've suggested this to people, and they just haven't gone along with it. Is if I hold a bond on that, you're not using my road. If I had the bond to that, there'd be machines right across saying, you can't get to Ross Commons. My road, you're destroying it. How am I gonna be protected? And I don't wanna hear, yeah, later on. I've already heard Hayes gets calls all the time for the silt. The silt is coming in from Ross Commons, it ain't coming in from him. And Landis all over him, because it's on his side. There's one avenue, Maggie, and maybe you should explore, is the fact that if it becomes accepted, that Whitman Homes would have to post a bond just like any, cutting into any street. You know how you do that?
Yeah.
So now it'll be a town road, so he could post a bond against that.
Except for the fact that they're not opening a street, they're not cutting, if they excavate it, the street opening permit covers excavations into. The town has no, the hard part is we have no, what do I call it, occupation.
Okay, then
street
I would make a
occupation.
recommendation as a
I
town.
wish there was a way to do exactly what
I'll
you're
make
saying.
one, and if I send a selectman, I'd say, shut the road off, Whitman Homes, find another way to get out here, because you're not coming through this new road, because you're beating the crap out of it. If no one wants to play ball, you just gotta play hardball, that's all.
Make them make a temporary road.
Yeah, he should've went out through North Street, and he could've been there, but chose not to do it.
Why don't we have Maggie sit down with Whitman Homes and Mr. Hayes and come up with some options here.
There is another way to do it, and I've suggested that too, is that Whitman Homes takes over the bond.
That's a good way.
That you could make him post it from whatever's left out to Fisher. He doesn't have to go off to his own Olmsted's house.
You could require him to post a bond that would cover paving all the way from here to here. I mean, that'd be easy to calculate. I don't know if legally you could make him do it. I don't know what the,
Well, some way, because
Why don't
do you want me to talk to Loretta? I
haven't seen
it.
It's
Because
gotta
they
be
gotta
legal before we make the guy do it. I don't want it to fall apart.
But the simple thing, Maggie, could be very simple, is you take over my bond, whatever's left, whatever's owed by the developer, and you own it. That would be the simplest way.
And he only needs part of the street. He doesn't have to take the other part that goes off to the,
Good thing I'm not that digger, because I'm gonna tell you, they wouldn't be getting in there if I didn't have this deal done. It's like, you're gonna destroy my road, so, anyway.
I mean, I think people in town meeting would be very upset knowing that they had to repave a road that was just built
How many
a year ago.
Well, more, and the other thing is you now have a whole one way in, one way out on a road that's just under construction. That doesn't normally happen. Because now you've beaten the crap out of it all the way. So, all right. All right. A little bit. Zoning article? You wanna go through it, Joe? What you got?
Sure. There's everyone has in front of them Mr. Norton's review of the article numbered 4, temporarily article number 4. And he's made some changes, and there's been some further clarification. And I can, if you want to do that one first, which is obviously the biggest one in the bunch, I think. We could do that first, and if you want to go ahead and explain I think it's pretty self-explanatory, that basically the article is the same as what it is in the book now, with the exception that it actually lists the conditions, and it also adds in the planning board for site plan review. The numbers in the conditions are basically the same as is in the current bylaw, correct? With one exception.
Good evening. Dave Norton, Building Commissioner. I was asked to take a look at this. It's not really my bylaw, but take a look at it to try and make it a little bit more consistent and across the board. What was brought to my attention was a few things here that Joe had brought forth. He actually had number 2, all proposed building shall have not less than is what I wrote when he had will not exceed more than 2 dwelling units. Number 3, he had 25 feet when originally we had 30, only because your setbacks are already 30, front and rear, so there's no sense of going less than that. Buildings may have a minimum of 30 feet apart from one another, because that one's been contentious across the board when you have multiple buildings. How close should they be to each other? So I threw out the number 30. You can actually make it less, more, or however you want to. In number 6, the maximum number of dwellings, regardless of number of buildings, will not exceed 1 dwelling unit for every 10,000. Now, I wrote 10,000 only because Section 5 already has 10,000. I'm trying to be a little consistent between 5 and 6. Now, obviously, if you wanted it 15, I would suggest changing 5 to 15. So again, they're consistent. That's one of the biggest things here is you need consistency.
Section 5.
Section 5, correct, sorry. And that's the biggest thing that I saw, that you really don't want to make it inconsistent with another section, because then it just goes back and forth. And we tried on the town meeting floor, when they kind of came up with Article 31 and went back and forth. This will get rid of all of that and just clarify it so you can read it and the zoning board will know exactly what to do with it. And again, you can change those numbers anyway, but if you do change the area, the area per unit, I would suggest you also do it in 5.
A couple of questions. And that you bring that one up, so I'm going to start there. Just so I'm clear on it, because I want to understand the definition of dwelling unit. So does that mean if we have a 2-family, we need 20,000 square feet, even if it's 1 building?
Yes. And again, in 5, you have that currently.
Well, I thought in 5 we had 10,000 for each physical building.
Well, under 5, and I want to separate the 2 again.
Yeah.
Under 5, you're only talking about 1 building. Under 6, you're talking about multiple buildings. So again, under 5, you can have a 2-family dwelling in 1 building, but it's still 20,000 square feet or 10,000 per unit.
Okay. The bigger question I have is the change in number 2 of the conditions. Shall not have less than 2 dwellings per building, which
Right.
means it's essentially, that and 3 together are essentially saying that any higher density housing developments are not going to happen. Because I can't make single families, I can't put a number of single family homes on a smaller lot, and definitely can't do it with, certainly front and rear are 30, but now you're saying the sidelines have to be 30 as well.
Well, again, it was only suggested because you're talking about multiple buildings, which is a little more extreme as far as a lot goes.
Sure.
And I'll use Stone Street for one of them. You have 3 of them right together. it's a little overwhelming, that type of thing. And so I've always thought, and some cities, towns use actually a scale, whereas you have 4 buildings, you'll go back 40, it's like 10 feet per building or per floor. There's different ways of doing it.
Sure.
You know? And again, I put that number out there and the board can
Just
look
for
at it any way they
discussion, yeah.
want.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was for discussion more than anything else. But again, because you're doing multiple buildings and you're asking for a special permit, I'm sure I've heard it many, many times from even members of this board that you want them a little farther setback. And again, you're going from a 10-foot setback on side to now 30. So you could change it to 20. You could do any one of them. But again, we're talking about multiple buildings on one lot. Versus in a GR, again, you could have a single-family house and still 10 feet.
Sure. Now, but this, I just want to make sure I'm understanding before so we're talking that only the GR districts can apply for this special permit, and then these conditions would apply.
Correct.
So on a
Which it is currently.
on 30 feet apart, does that mean that I can be at a 15-foot side setback as long as the other guy is too?
And again, there are multiple buildings on a lot, okay? So there's no sideline, technically.
So you're not talking about the next
talking
lot,
about
you're
the
just
next
talking
lot.
about
Buildings.
each building
Each
in and of
building
itself
within
on the
that
lot.
lot, yes.
The side lots still apply.
All right. I just think that this is, and again, I know it's for discussion, but my initial thoughts are, in general, residents, I like the idea of high quality, high density housing, and I'm worried that by putting these setback restrictions, that it might limit or eliminate anyone trying to do that type of thing. And again, I don't think it's appropriate in anything but the GR district, but I'm just concerned that we're gonna have a hard time enticing people to develop this type of high-quality developments because of these restrictions. So, and again, I don't want row houses, you know, but I think there are ways to make really high-quality, high-density developments that this would make it real difficult for people.
And to that point, if you have a 3-family on a GR and it's one building,
Right.
you could have you could have under 5, a 50-foot buffer
Right.
already. That's already in there, so.
I'm more talking about the single-family
Yeah.
situation, you know?
But a single family, again, under this one, the way it's written, single family doesn't exist that way. It's only two or more
Yeah.
in multiple buildings. So if you had 2 buildings, 2 in each, that's where the 40,000 square feet comes in.
The way this is written is it mirrors section 5, correct?
Correct.
So that if you drove down the street, you wouldn't know, and if you're on a private road, or you wouldn't know based upon the way this is gonna be laid out. They get the 10,000 square foot per unit. I understand the first part, the number, if you're more than 2 or more than 2.
Right.
No. No, not less than 2. That's,
Not less than.
yeah. You kick up to 5, okay? So what this is doing, because we don't have it now, that's been I maintain, is if the person next to you who's lived there has to have a 30-foot setback, they have to be 15 foot off the line, then now it's no different than the building here and here. Now it's 30, and that looks the same.
It looks the same,
Looks the
correct.
same. That's the only
It
thing
looks the same.
they're losing. As a matter of fact, the single unit has a 50-foot buffer all the way around on any vacant land or any single-family house. So that's even more restrictive.
In 3 or more. Or is it
Yeah,
more than 3?
more than three, yeah.
More than 3.
So that's a 50-foot buffer. So this
Right.
really mirrors everything.
It does. It makes it a little more consistent. That's what.
Yes.
That's the point I'm trying to make, so
Yeah.
that it's
But
more
wouldn't
consistent.
like, let's say someone has a 120,000 square foot lot, big lot, and they want to do single family, all just beautiful, like the place up in Medfield off of 27.
Like cluster zoning.
Yeah, but high end. I mean, those houses are all going for $800,000, $900,000, $1 million. They're beautiful, and the neighborhood is beautiful. Does especially condition number 2, does that eliminate the possibility of that special permit?
Of a single?
Yes.
It does.
Yeah.
Is that
And
what
again,
we
that's a
want?
cluster zoning is different than what this is, they actually should be separate from each other. We actually should have it, probably may or may, you know, depending on what the town wants, whether they actually would want cluster zoning or not.
Yeah, because by putting, Rob, this is our discussion, because if not, the whole place will be up. You'll have your chance when you put up your boards, if we let you. But what you're saying, and to develop single family, in my opinion, is that's a way around doing a subdivision. That's all that is. And this is trying to, if you want to build, you want to be in GR, you're going to be in Rome, do like the Romans. You're going to be in GR, do like the rest of the general
Right,
residents.
and again, I'm just trying to make it consistent with 5 so the bylaw makes more sense. If the board's purview to do 1, then that's the board's purview. That's.
I just think I'd like to find some consistency in the bylaw like you're doing, and have been doing for a while. I mean, I know you've been at this, trying to do it for a while. But there has to be a way to be able to preserve the ability for appropriate high-density housing. And I think this goes the other way with it. And again, I know you're just putting these out there for discussion.
You're saying number 2 does that?
Number 2 does that, because you can't have multiple single families, and I think that's.
But that becomes less dense when you go with a single as opposed to a 2. If you're talking
Essentially.
about number of units per lot.
Yeah, it's less dense.
Yeah.
Correct. It's not more, it's less.
Yeah, so the density decreases with singles.
Right, because if you had 4 in one building, it's the same thing. But the numbers end up the same, because you're still talking 10,000 square feet.
Lot, yeah.
All right, I'd like to see it worded somehow where we could get, there wouldn't be that minimum of 2 dwellings per unit. Because I think that would open it up to opportunity. You know, again, I don't want row houses, but I think there's opportunity for high quality, high density, single family on, you know, in a condo type situation, on the same lot. I think that's.
My own opinion, I don't have an issue because you're getting less dense, so that's fine by me. Mark, you're going the other way.
Well, no, I want the restriction to be, you know, I don't want the 30-foot, I want them bang, 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 bang.
Then, this isn't Walpole. People bought into the GR. We live here because we like that. And there's no guarantee it's gonna be wonderful housing because you get the roll of the dice.
Well, we still get the clauses that, you know, it has to fit in with the neighborhood and the
But that's
streetscape.
very subjective, and so far we've had a couple of these. I wouldn't call it one on Stone Street. It's kind of like, you know, fortunately I know everybody involved, but it's like the big albatross. You drive down, it's like, wow. I drove down there one night, hadn't been down there in a while, it's like, is that a shadow?
Yeah, but compared to what? Because when I drive down there, I'm like, wow.
Wow, but you.
I say, wow, that's really cool, and somebody else says, "Ugh,
If
wow.
Yeah, but if you live next, that's your neighborhood, and all of a sudden you got these just monstrosities just have popped up, and one right near the road. That is not in harmony with the neighborhood. Right, Rob? I know you were on that. I just.
Don't comment.
No, I don't. No, we're just
Do not
deciding
answer
this-
that.
But the point is, there was a big loophole that.
Rhetorical.
Gave the zoning board no which way minimum, so you could.
Guidance. No guidance.
If I loved you, I'll give you 50 and 2 feet, and if I hated you, 200 feet and you get 1. Yeah, I mean, that's what this does, it's gotta give them guidance. And in my opinion, it's consistent with it. You're not taking really a bunch of rights away from anybody, it just kinda, we don't have the loophole exploited, but.
Yeah, and again, this was a citizen's petition that the board's now taking over, so.
So I have a question.
Really not mine.
On that citizen petition, last town meeting, Article 29, right? There was a moratorium passed, is that correct?
Correct.
So why are we rushing to put another Band-Aid on the bylaw when?
Because there's an end date to the moratorium.
In June.
We were told by town meeting to come back at the next town meeting with a resolution to add the
It's not
to
1 year?
section.
No,
No, it's 8 months.
June
It
30th.
was 8 months.
Okay. Well, I think personally that it's just not good to just keep changing this word and that word and then this word and then putting another Band-Aid and then going back and then there's more problems. I'd like to really study the issue, see what other towns do, come up with a section that's clear, consistent, that allows for some kind of denser units, fitting within the character, and really like set it to bed. Like, I feel like every time there's a town meeting, there's another issue, another issue, and then we find something else.
Well, also under the purview of the hopefully soon-to-be hired planner. I think that person
Yes,
should have some input, and,
With the moratorium expiring, though, I think, yes, that's very smart way to address it, but I think we have to do it sooner rather than later, because the moratorium's going to expire. So I think, I agree with you, but I believe Joe said something about we could put a placeholder to hold a place on the,
Well, let me just recap.
But when the moratorium expires,
what happens?
goes back to what we
back-
decided, 10,000, is that correct?
No.
No, it
what
goes
is it-
back
what
to what it
Go back
was.
to what it was, with no rules.
right.
Zero.
But then we can address it again, though.
Here, let me just.
So
can I
what
just jump
happens
in?
on
Well,
what passed, which one
That
was
was
it?
a while, that just changed the,
Your Article
10,000.
31, doesn't it
That wasn't
default
mine.
back to,
It
okay,
goes
well,
back to that.
the one that you
That's hammered by
spoke.
everybody, and there are a few individuals that next time he speaks, I'm not gonna be so nice, especially when you have conflicts on that. But that was 10,000, but this is, let me ask, and I understand what you're saying, Sarah. This gives guidance to the zoning board, correct?
Correct,
So that they say you're gonna be 30 feet, just like your neighbor.
correct.
You're gonna be 30 feet from the back, just like your neighbor. So now, the houses, when we look at them, they'll be just like my house to his house. I can't be closer than 15 to 15 is 30. So, and now other than that one building, you could change it back to one, it doesn't matter to me, it's gonna make it a GR district, what's already there.
Right, I mean, it's not perfect, because obviously, the end ones to the lot line are 30 feet, even on the side. So it's a little bit, actually, a little bit more as far as the side goes. Front and rear would stay the same.
Yeah, it depends on how you arrange it,
Position
too,
the houses,
because
correct.
The land, yeah, because usually when you do these, it's not the cookie cutter like being on the road.
Correct.
You got so much land, you gotta jockey it, it may not even ever look like could look like a bunch of houses spread.
But I mean, like other towns, they will have this kind of like cluster, zoning, and then they can put like a buffer zone around it, so you actually end up with more.
But this is not a cluster.
Okay, I know, I'm just saying there are other ways to do it, so let's study those ways.
We got rid of one just a while ago, which came back to the 80s to benefit certain individuals up at Endine Farm there. And that was our former,
Yeah, and then we recently got rid of
because of
open
all the
space,
issues, yeah, because that open space didn't work, it was
which
just.
is unfortunate, in my opinion.
Well, to me, it allowed the developer to maximize his profits, and then the town get it stuck back at him. I mean, we didn't have any one of those to really work, and I bet you don't even know, Sarah, is the subdivision Christina Drive, you know where that is, my lot, across from Patriot Tavern?
My lord,
You know what,
no.
if
Yeah.
you go to Norwood, 1A.
Yeah.
And Patriot Tavern's on the left?
I don't know, Patriot Tavern, yeah, okay, yeah,
Right, that on the, right there,
yeah.
that is an open space, you wouldn't know it. It looks like a subdivision. It kind of snuck in didn't sneak in.
But open space is allowing a denser section with an open space near it.
But that's
So
not-
preserving, so that you reduce the cost for the town, for the road, for the, all the utilities going far distances, so that they can be clustered, and then you still preserve that open space. It's not open in between the different residences, but you still get that open space. I mean, that's
But one
what
of
it's
the-
designed to be.
But one of the issues is, and if I bought in rural, I don't live, actually I do live in rural, but they wouldn't put it up by me, you're in rural, I know. I don't want to look out and see 8,000 square foot lots. I bought a 40,000 square foot lot, because that's where I wanted to be, and that's the only place that was allowed. What you're talking about is different than this. This is trying to bring some rules to it. Right now, the way Dave has interpreted it, is you jump down to section 6 if you have more than one building. And there are no rules, none, other than the 10,000, or
Right,
there
I
is now.
mean, pretty much, even Article 31 didn't tie it in the way it should be.
Yeah, but it's,
And this is more reflecting Section 5, which 31 was trying to do, but it's written out, and it'll be right under 6C4.
My thoughts on this are really falling more in line with Sarah's. And the issue that I have is if the moratorium ends, it goes back to the way it was for how long? Decades?
It goes back to what
Forever?
it was
No.
until somebody else changes.
Until,
Well,
but what I'm saying is, so if it was like that for decades, I don't think getting a planner involved, our new planner, whenever they get hired, and taking some time to make sure it's absolutely the way we want it, that we've been able to explore at least possible unintended consequences.
You're never going to get it back. You're never going to get to where you really want it. We have let me just take it back to the December 7th meeting of the planning board for a second. If you will recall, I introduced a version of this, okay? And I sat down with Dave for like 3 hours one afternoon, and he enjoyed that meeting. and then I went up to Maggie and explained, showed her what we were doing, and back over to other people.
How many
And
developers did you talk to?
one pertinent developer,
One pertinent one?
yes.
In your opinion?
Very pertinent.
Okay, all right.
And we also got a package, if you will recall, from a developer about this particular section. So there was a lot of conversation. And I heard what you said, and I heard what Mark said about the density issue. And so you'll see the numbers here in this version is a lot different than the numbers that I introduced in December. The thing that I said in December was, and I think Katie reiterated it to everybody because the conversation was getting pretty long, was that we should all take it home, review it, and come back with our own version for discussion. Well, I've got my own version, and I spent some time with Mr. Norton again, and I went through the entire process, spending a lot of hours and a lot of time putting not only this article together, but some other ones for consideration. So this one matches what we already have. I
Except that it
recognize
disallows
the fact.
single-family.
What's that?
Except that it disallows, the kind of development where it's multiple single families on a
And
lot.
higher density.
Well, no, you can get density in 5.
Let me ask you one quick question.
Sure.
Just as an example.
Right.
Under this proposed list of conditions, would Riverwalk be able to be built now down in East Walpole?
Bird River, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the sidelines are too tight, even though they're
Well,
not
and
single
again,
families, but
how you line them up, like, Riverwalk's the one in front of Pinnacle, right? Is that the one?
Yeah, it's the one right on Bird River.
Right in front. Yeah, it's only the 2 ends, because that's your side. Every other one's still 30 in the front, 30 in the back. It's just the
I'm
two.
not sure they are.
Well, I don't know what,
There's probably only 15 feet.
I wasn't here when it was developed, but I don't know what those,
You wouldn't be able to do it with this, but let me tell you why that's important. Because Riverwalk brings in taxes every year with no cost to the town. We don't take care of that road, we don't do anything. $380,000 a year, which is more than Hollingsworth and Vose, and our third largest commercial entity in the town. These high-density private developments bring in a ton of money for the town, and that's why I'm worried about spreading it
now,
out.
the only difference between what this is and that is one, single-family houses, correct?
Yes, exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
And then the setback.
And the sidelines, more
Which again,
than the setbacks.
You have in front of you, you can change those numbers if you feel comfortable with that. My only suggestion would be, we know there's a moratorium that's gonna run out, it's gonna run out,
Right.
okay? Hopefully, we'll have a planner well in place, hopefully within the next month
Yeah.
to 6 weeks, hopefully.
yeah.
And if that happens, even if it gets by this board and continues on, the planner will jump on and look at this. And if they turn around and said, well, maybe we should do it this way or that way, they're still gonna see it. My only thing is, and it's always been, is one, to be consistent, and two, to have some rules in place that people can follow. And right now, the ZBA doesn't have those rules to follow. They'll be the first ones to admit it. And secondly, nothing seems consistent with 6 and 5 at all. And that's been one of my biggest frustrations, because I want to be able to interpret it one way that everybody's going to interpret the same way. And as you know, previous building inspector before me interpreted pretty much the same way I did, but the one before him interpreted completely differently. And I met with Liz Barrows recently, spent about an hour together going over things. And one of the things, I won't go into everything we talked about, if she was here, she could tell you. But one of the biggest things she said to me was, she goes, I don't want somebody else interpreting some other way. That was her biggest thing, talking about it. She doesn't want someone interpreting in a way that it's not consistent with what's here. And I agree with it, totally, because that's the way it should be. It should be across the board. Whenever I leave, if I leave, whatever, the next person comes in should be able to look at it and go, okay, I get it. This is what I need to follow.
Except
Done.
that, this is gonna sound strange, but it's true, that ambiguity sometimes is done in a purposeful manner to take into consideration individual situations where your interpretation is relevant, because there may be times where higher density is appropriate, and there are many times where higher density is not appropriate, which is why your interpretation is very important. I wouldn't want things to be so restrictive and cut and dry that it would take your, meaning you specifically, your ability to act on something that's appropriate.
Right.
You know, that's my.
But also at the
issue.
same time, most people have to realize when I make an interpretation, if it's not black and white in a book, I'm taking a chance because it's appealable.
Sure.
And I could be overturned. And do I want to do that? Of course not. I don't want to, you know. But at the same time, at least if you have a basis to go off of, I think that's probably the best thing in the world.
He needs a law to follow, and ambiguity.
Well, I think the board needs,
Ba-
the zoning board
Right,
needs
the
it to
zoning-
follow.
But
you need a
ambiguity is just going to lead to more confusion.
I mean, I'm still going to interpret
Okay,
it the
but
way
we're
I have.
okay, let's
interpretation
say
level
this
is what I'm talking
passes. What's gonna happen? Next fall town meeting, there's gonna be another proposal for another change. I mean,
But you
What's
could say
wrong
that
with
about
that, though?
everything. I mean, and if we're just picking on that.
I
I'm gonna make
don't
a few
know.
comments. One of them is Riverwalk's an AQV. End of discussion. So, and I've been doing this for a long time, and this town has battled against housing, because housing drains our self. It drains. We've always, and if you're talking about we need more, look down there, that has been built in those lots down there. We're gonna get more, and then over at the Woodpeckers, we're gonna get, so we're gonna add on the, well, that's, you know, it is the Woodpeckers, we all know that. So you got 150, 190, so there's 400, and another almost 200. So there's 600 units gonna come online. I don't think this town needs anything more dense.
okay,
I have a
And the
question. I have a
AQV has
question.
a whole different section and density.
okay,
So
okay.
if a builder comes in and they would like to, we pass this, and they would like to have them closer together, can they go for a variance?
Yes.
Yes, right? There's nothing to stop them from going
Anybody
for a
can go for a
variance,
variance.
right?
Right.
Second of all, I understand trying to help the builders, but I also have heard from so many neighbors with these projects that have gone through what I call the loophole. So I think we need to find a middle ground. We don't want to just keep the builders happy. We don't want to just keep the neighbors happy. We need to find a middle ground where it's fair to everyone. And I think that if the variance process exists, it's not like we're, you know, banging the gavel and saying, get out, you can't have it. I would rather see an amendment to the amendment. You know, I would rather pass something reasonable, and then if the planner comes in and we discuss it with them and they think we should change it, I'd rather see us go back to town meeting and have an amendment to the amendment than have things keep going like they are, because what's going on is bedlam. I mean, just from what we've seen, I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's not reasonable. So that's my view on it. I think we need to do something. And I think if, you know, obviously I don't think we'll come to an agreement tonight, but I think that if we can put a placeholder in for the warrant so that we can come up with something that we can agree on, I think we should do something for town meeting. I don't think we should just let it go.
Well, what I would suggest is that you can always amend this. You can change your motion prior to town meeting. So you can But what I would say is put this in now so town council can review it, and then we can see what her opinions are. And then sit down, and if you want to amend it again within the confines of her legal opinion. You've already got Dave's, now you need town council, and by that time, hopefully, the planner will come on board, community development director, or whatever we're calling it now, and come on board, and you'll have that by town meeting. But you've got to have something for town meeting. I do not want to go to town meeting
But
with
can
nothing.
we have a placeholder?
Yeah.
Did I read that somewhere?
It can't be materially different.
No.
Whatever passes can't be materially different.
We
than
can have a
what's proposed.
placeholder, because we haven't voted on it.
Oh, through, like, next week, you mean?
No, they gave it till our next meeting, right?
Yeah, you got,
February 1st. That's one of the issues.
you
in-
got some leeway as long as you give Jim a
my
placeholder,
only-
something in a placeholder.
Yeah, well, one of the issues, and this has been my own little, I don't even know how to say the word, but anyway, is the fact that we have the warrant closes on January 23rd. We don't have town meeting until
Right.
May. That's
Why?
4.5
Yeah,
months.
why is that?
In the fall, it closes in August 23rd, and it's a month and a half later.
Exactly,
They
why?
moved town meeting back a month, but years ago, but they never moved the warrant. To me, the warrant should be like another month ahead, because you just get jammed. Think about it, you just got a town meeting in October.
Yeah.
You do Thanksgiving, Christmas, and boom, and you gotta have it done.
Yeah.
But we're only asking for a placeholder, so I'll make the motion to have this article as a placeholder.
Second.
For a second, any further discussion?
Yes. Can I just say, so the planning board is here to facilitate orderly growth of the town. So what I would like to see is some clear, thought-out language that has been, vetted, that, really answers all the questions that we have, that has the relevant input for everybody, and we can then move forward with orderly growth. This one, it's got a lot of good things, and I understand that we need to have, guidance. I totally, agree with that. But there's gonna be something else after this, and that's what I don't agree with. Because, and then the negotiating and town meeting, it's just not the place to do it.
Can you give us your questions in writing so we have something to work with? I'll be glad to facilitate anything you want, but
Well,
give
I
us,
want
give me
a
something in
whole
writing
nother
to go by.
section, which I'm in the middle of, researching, but I haven't had time to really propose a whole nother section. And I don't think it should be me or any one person. I think it
But if
should
you
be.
do a whole other section, Sarah, that would take the ability for anybody to go to these multiple buildings. That would be gone.
Well, it depends on how the section is written, but
Yeah, but you're saying you want a whole nother section, so this one will be gone if your section came in. You'd have to tailor around this.
Well, I think she's talking about rewriting the entire thing, so it's,
You can rewrite it, but my point is, if you're gonna put more than 2 buildings on a GR, then 6C goes away, and whatever you put in, you're gonna have to, this can't exist with what you wanna do.
And you
But
might
that
have
whole
to,
thing
you
of
might have to
limiting more than
revise
2
section
buildings or
5.
single family, all that should be dealt with. Like, so we have clear guidance in all situations. Do we as a town want to say that, multiple buildings on a single lot is
Well-
prohibited ever? Maybe, we do, but
Okay, so you just understand, the zoning bylaws in every town, and this one too, came from, the houses were already there. GI was there. GI's been there 150 years.
Right.
So they looked around, there's 2 families, there's singles, there's triple deckers, we didn't have any of the, like down in the flats in Norwood.
Right.
But that's how it was written, and they tried to make it pretty consistent. This interpretation, that Dave said he agrees with the former one, as spun as before, we never had this, you had to go get you were bounded by section 5, 10,000, and you're bounded by all the other things with it. The one on Plimpton Street went by that, Plimptonville, right before you come to Main Street. He had the 50-foot buffer, he did 2, you know what I'm talking about, right? What's his name, John's there?
Yeah.
He had the 50-foot buffer, and he played little games with the, when he subdivided, but that's fine, but he went by that. But now we have a different interpretation, and because there's a different interpretation, this makes the interpretation simpler for you too.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but,
but I think what Sarah's saying is, yes, based on everything you just said, you're exactly right. But I think we need to sit
I
back
want a forward
and
thinking.
find out where this town is going, what we need, what we want it to look like in the future. I mean, yeah, if we went back and looked at cars in the 1930s, they wouldn't look like a Tesla.
Okay, but
But somebody said,
here's
how
a
do we
simple
want
issue.
automobiles to go?
There is
And
a
they've
problem.
changed it.
Here's a problem right now. It's trying to be fixed. If that's something, if you want to do something for the future, it shouldn't have to be something that needs to be fixed. And this is what this is trying to do. So I have a motion on, Sarah, you have anything else? You all set? Okay, I had a motion to put a placeholder for this. All those in favor?
Is the placeholder just blank, or is it
Yeah.
based off?
Well, it's gonna be based upon this and whatever we end up doing at the next meeting. Because we're gonna fish and cut bait probably at next meeting.
Okay, but that's not like locked into any
No,
of this?
no,
all right.
no, we'll hold the
Okay.
place like this.
Placeholders like that, okay.
It may go in like that.
You know, Joe's over there, we gotta be careful, we gotta make sure we
Okay.
understand every word,
So-
because he does.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes.
And a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, placeholder for that. All right. What's the other ones, I assume we're going downhill now, Joe, I hope?
I need a nap.
Please.
Number 1 is nothing. We're gonna hold that.
The railroad, yep, okay.
Hold it.
Doing nothing with that one?
I'm not, yeah, I'm gonna look into that more. That's just that one's gonna really need a lot of research. Number 2 is housekeeping. You agree with that, Mr. Norton?
Please do it.
Thank you. Can I vote that? Can I make a motion to accept Article number 2?
Questions?
Mm-hmm.
So are you sure that all the numbers are correct in the table?
I am.
So, for example,
Spent hours researching it.
so if you renumber it, everything will be
Correct.
correct, right? Okay, so what is 16? 16 will be the old 15. So where is it referred to in the table? Why is it there? Are we sure 4 is 4 and not 5?
No, there is no 16, it goes to 15.
Well, now we're gonna renumber it to 16, is what
Right.
you're saying.
No, it still won't be 16. The second 3 will become 4, 4 will become 5, 5 will become 6, 6 becomes 7, 7 is 8, 8 is 9, 9 is 10. And if you notice, there was no 10. Then you're back to the correct 11, 12,
All right,
13.
so, like, just look at, I just checked a few. So if you look at, where was that? The rural minimum side back, or different side backs, it refers to 4. So then 4 will be detached building. Okay, maybe that's fine. I just want to make sure that somebody's gone through, because I had the same note to renumber those and do that, but we want to make sure
I
that they
took
all
older
referred.
books, saw what they had originally, and matched it up to this. I mean, it's technically a Scribner's error. Somebody
Yeah.
put that 3 in there and never figured it out to straighten it
Okay.
out.
And on the table 6B1, just the dimensional tables, under the required lot area, for limited manufacturing and industrial, it's got like inches. Is that supposed to be 11? Is that,
I think that was 11.
are we sure?
I believe it is 11. We've always interpreted it as 11.
It always, okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that somebody went through it exactly.
So no additional language is needed on that particular article. That's sufficient for the housekeeping.
Right. It's housekeeping, just to get the numbers straight.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I make a motion to accept Article 2 for planning board sponsorship.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, 3.
Okay, number 3 is basically what we discussed the last time, and, whoa,
I'm gonna lose power.
You already lost downtown, so.
Yeah.
some people have asked for additional information, and this paper that you got by email and Kate ran off, provides that explanation. 3. So you got about 5 or 6 paragraphs of information there. I didn't have a chance to run off the chart. I know you, Sarah, like a visual, but I do have a copy here if you want it.
So this is simply taking everything out of the commercial land.
Right. For the 10-acre AQV only. It doesn't touch the 15-acre AQV at this time.
All right, I'll ask you why you wouldn't touch that then. I don't care. They're gonna do what they wanna do anyway.
Well,
All right, so, all right, I'll give the history of it, because I'm the oldest guy feeling in the room, but AQV was originally put in by Omega Associates, and that's how they ended up doing, actually sold off Riverwalk, and they put it in, they wanted, and at the time, they sold it on, which was not a bad idea back 20 years ago, is we had a lot of crap area, like the old box shops and this and that, and no one wanted to see them around, so if you get some age qualified, you're gonna generate taxes and something look good, it made a good deal. But I think what Joe's saying now, if you look around, I think most of the tough stuff is gone, and now they're starting to eat up. If they go and try to take, say, something on Route 1, you've ate up some good land that you're not getting the tax rate you would from a commercial. And that's kinda, this whole thing was done by private petition.
you know, and there's some information here that I put in based upon a sampling of the condos in town, and the fact that now the condos are increasing, and that most of the condos, or a majority, almost 66% of the condos are occupied by residents who are over the age of 55. And I was kind of startled by that high percentage too. So you've got quite a bit, and they're not AQV designated. And then you have the additional types of housing for over 55, both in Walpole and right next to Walpole. And you have the dual tax rate issue, which I regard as being extremely important.
I have no issues on this. Any discussion? I'll start with you, Kate.
No, I didn't disagree with it.
Mark?
No, I'm good with it.
Sarah?
Well, so you're taking it out of
The commercial.
the commercial?
Yeah.
And it was always allowed in Residence B and GR, so that hasn't changed.
Right.
Okay,
So actually, you're putting it where it should be.
Trying to preserve.
Residential,
Yeah.
residential.
okay, yeah. And whatever may be in the works
Is
at this time
grandfathered.
is grandfathered.
15-acre AQV is
It's a
not being
separate
touched.
section anyway, yeah, okay.
Okay. I'll make a motion to
Okay.
sponsor this article.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Okay, 3, and we are on to 4. Oh, no, we did that one, sorry. That was it, right?
Oh, 5, the
5.
other one on the, Dave just saw this today, so this is the one on the, to amend section 5B, the use table on the public, semi-public institutional.
I actually have not read that yet.
You have not one?
I have not read that yet.
Okay. Basically, it expands on the definition, private for-profit school, to add private for-profit school, nursery school, or any educational or daycare institution operated by private, profit-seeking businesses. Now, is that private for-profit school would that would not be allowed in any district, any residential district,
Well, not necessarily, because
unless it was,
we're kind of starting to play around with the Dover Act, and
well, that only applies to nonprofit. That's my understanding. Nonprofit
I don't think
entities.
so.
not exactly, no,
Applies to-
No?
No, no,
Applies to
no.
educational.
right. It more in line with any educational use.
Component.
So what I saw online was that there was there was in the law, in the section of the opinion that I read the other day, was that it applied only to nonprofit.
There have been some case law out there that they overturned a decision because they found out the for-profit company was just nailing the city or town that was happening. But that's case law versus what Dover actually says. So I'm always careful where you step when it comes to Dover. So I mean, it's like I said, I did not read what you wrote, so I don't fully know how you're implying this. But again, I think there's something more for town council than it is for me.
I was just gonna say, why don't we
Yeah.
just send it to town council and see what she thinks?
How would it affect, like, the neighborhood six-child daycare?
Wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, the 6 and 10 are already protected under state law.
But what about larger than that in a neighborhood?
Well, that's what Dover kicks in.
Right. And my understanding was nonprofit. You had to be nonprofit to take advantage of the Dover Amendment. Now I'm hearing that maybe that's not the case. I would like to send it to town council to get a definite opinion, because some of the decisions that I read seem to indicate that.
Yeah, someone then I prefer that you go to town council then.
But having said that, let's say that I think there are times where a neighborhood daycare is appropriate, and I'm just wondering why we would want to change the wording when it's pretty much covered now, and let someone apply for a daycare in a neighborhood where it is appropriate, and if it's not appropriate, they'll have to go through the process. I mean, why put the wording in there just to stop?
Well, because what's happening is the same thing like in other instances. People are buying up smaller parcels of land and proposing large daycare centers in the middle of these neighborhoods. Okay, so how can you buy an acre and a quarter and put in 150 and say you're going to do 150 children? I don't see how that fits. Now, my understanding was that if it was Dover amendment, yes, you can probably do it. It's not coming to site plan review, and it's not coming to special
You can still
permit
send it to site plan.
for only particular.
Even a Dover protected one, you can still send them to site
Only for
plan.
particular, what do you call it, elements.
Right, and site plan is not that restrictive, so,
Right.
right. Because, I mean, currently, I think you have one in mind right now that I've already told their attorney I'm sending it for site plan.
Okay.
Mhm.
But apart from that situation that you just outlined, not all daycares are large 150 child buildings that were in a
And we
rural
have,
district.
and we have a daycare bylaw that covers that, the smaller daycare centers.
Smaller doesn't necessarily mean small, but it also doesn't mean, huge. I'm
I'm
just
not-
wondering, because we do have the daycare part of the bylaw, what's trying to be accomplished by adding that verbiage? Over and above what's already there, which is a for-profit school.
I'm not,
In other words, why are we proposing to change the words? What I'm getting at is, it seems like every month that we're in here, somebody finds a project that's been proposed, and instead of just going through the process and seeing whether or not it's gonna get through all the different boards to get approved, we try to change the bylaw quickly to stop something from happening. And to Sarah's point, that's where you start just all these little corrections and and trying to stop a particular project by changing the entire bylaw, which may affect many things in the future, doesn't make sense to me.
Well, that's how these all
Put
come
you
up.
at risk for snob
We
zoning.
don't sit here with a crystal ball saying this would be perfect. This is how changes are developed, because you find a loophole. That's what's being done. I've been here a while. I don't, other than Article 31 to 29, that's about the only one we've had, and that was only developed because of the fact that there was an interpretation difference, and there was the fact that when they got there, it was nothing, it was like this. But, I don't have an issue with it. One of the things, if I'm sitting in a neighborhood and someone's gonna build a daycare next to me, there's nothing on the Dover Act, it's one thing having 6 and it looks like a house, but they put the one like up on 109 right next to me. I don't want that next to me. And so that's when it's really a problem. And the other thing is, I think, I live next to a school. Schools are great. They start 7:30, they're out of there by 3. Daycares, 6. So, but I could see people wouldn't want to plunk down right next to them,
But will those words, with changing that verbiage, stop someone from buying a house and putting in a daycare that can accommodate 80 kids?
No, if it's Dover Amendment, no.
But right now,
You have no real authority to stop anything with Dover Amendment.
let me, can I bring it back? If we vote the placeholder, because this hasn't even gone to town council, and a lot of clerk may go, So
okay.
this will be what will get voted on. So we're just voting
Okay.
on the placeholder,
All
not
right.
the whole
Okay.
discussion.
Gotcha.
And like I said, it'll come back and it could be
Yeah.
nixed the whole deal.
All right.
All right? So I make a motion to use a placeholder for this one.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, okay.
There is one thing I'd like to bring up to the board, just quickly.
Yep.
The sign regulations that we have, the ZBA recently has been struggling with them severely, only because most signs, unfortunately, is a variance, because we don't have anything in it about special permit. Most cities and towns, I'd say 90% of them, consider their sign bylaws all done by special permit. And that's been talked about. It was talked about at the meeting last night, it was talked about the meeting before. I did say to them last night that I could bring forth a suggestion to this board if they wanted, again, placeholder or whatever, or it's something we can deal with next fall. It's not affecting anything other than the ones that they have before them now. And the only proposal I would say is, currently, the very first sentence says, the purpose of this section is to coordinate the type, placement, and scale of signs within each of the zoning districts established under this bylaw. My suggestion would be is to change it slightly to say the purpose of this section is to allow the ZBA by special permit to coordinate the type, placement, and scale of signs, et cetera, et cetera.
And what is it now under? It's still on special permit?
There's only one piece of it that's special permit, and that's the illuminated signs. The rest of them are all done by variance.
What do you mean by struggling? They're buried with them?
Well, they had one recently which would make absolute sense to give it by special permit. The sign should be there. I'm not gonna tell you what sign it
Yeah.
is, but they all agreed, everybody in the room agreed it should be there. But it was a variance,
And what's
and they
wrong?
couldn't struggle with variance.
I went for a variance on a sign. That's why I asked you. It wasn't a big deal, so I don't understand. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay, well, the members are not finding that the criteria for a variance,
Yep.
shape, topography, et cetera, when it comes to a sign, it's very hard to put them together. It's hard for them to wrap their heads around a variance in those conditions, per se, to give somebody a variance to meet topography, et cetera, et cetera. Do you know what I mean?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 3 conditions. and-
No,
yeah,
No,
you have to-
I understand, but I don't. So what, are they looking for signs that are really big?
No, I mean, it's not the signs themselves. It's letting the board do it by special permit instead of by variance. That's what they're saying, because they're struggling with those. They're trying to stay within what 40A allows them to do.
Yeah.
You know, variance, you have to meet 4 criteria, which is very difficult to do. So if they follow that guideline,
And
most of
what's, and I'm not challenging you, I'm trying to
Oh, it's fine.
understand. What's difficult? Because I had a postage stamp and we met it,
Yeah.
so that's why,
Was that here?
yeah, right across from the fire station.
And was this? I'd have to look at that thing, but I'm only telling you what.
No, and
Meeting
like
with
I
the
say,
board
I'm not
twice about this,
arguing
so.
with you, I'm trying to understand it, that's all.
Yeah, but again, the criteria for a variance, when it really comes down to it, I don't know what your sign was.
Yep.
But I'd say 90% of all signs, you just can't meet the criteria for a variance. You can't.
Okay.
It's impossible. Not with a sign. And that's why with special permit, they can condition it, they can do whatever they want with it without having to go through those 4 criteria.
No, believe me, it would have been a lot easier not to.
That you're
For
referring
variance?
to? Yeah,
It's
it's in the sign section?
shape, topography, yeah, I've got to find this actually.
Hard, gotta prove hardship, yeah, and monetarily, however you prove that.
Yeah. Hold on.
Okay.
I should have brought that with me.
It seems reasonable. I mean, can we put a placeholder to something that we don't
Yeah, you can
have
vote
a
for it, so,
writing?
yeah, yeah. Question for you, Dave. This is the first I ever heard this being a problem.
Okay.
And I've never heard, matter of fact, I thought the sign bylaws, we wrote them so that they could sail through. Could you give me an example of one? I know the one you're probably talking about.
Okay, right on Main Street.
Yeah, for
For
the,
an
for the
attorney.
Aggie.
No, for an attorney. It was an attorney that actually the house is set way back.
It's right on here.
Oh,
Um,
Marilyn Ryan's one?
Yeah, Ryan and Fancy.
Yes, exactly. And that sign there, they actually bought a sign, put it up. They thought they'd done everything right. It turned out they put a bigger sign than what was allowed. So now they needed a variance. And to try to meet that criteria, it was a long stretch, and it almost didn't get passed, but it ended up getting passed.
It's a nice sign, too.
It is a nice sign, actually.
So, so the hardship is, I built it too big and it's gonna cost me
Yeah,
money to take it
yeah,
down.
it wasn't exactly how it was
I
laid
mean,
out, but.
my opinion is, shame on whoever did it. Let's
Mm-hmm.
have a few brains here and read what's in the book. That's why we made them 4 foot above. We did certain things there. But if that's the only time, but has there been ones that the guy needed, that he just wouldn't meet the criteria? That's what I'm thinking.
Well, the long one, the Aggie, you just brought up the Aggie.
But the Aggie, doesn't that come under schools and it shouldn't
I
even be
actually,
there?
well, at first they weren't gonna do it that way, but then I actually made that suggestion that it is Dover protected. Dover can have a sign, you can have a sign under it. You don't have to have an illuminated sign. So that's the stretch on it, but because the illumination part is actually a special permit, the only piece in there that's a special permit, they allowed it that way. So,
okay.
I mean, I'm just bringing it up, I mean,
No, if it's an issue, if it's a problem, you might as well do it as a special permit. I understand that. But I just wanted, because we went through this, all the LED, I was back here when we had candles for illumination, then we got the LEDs of recent times, and
Right.
oh my God, this side and this side, and we had one from Norwood, and it was just,
right.
you couldn't put a sign anywhere.
I think more that I'm bringing this up, not because, and again, the board did not tell me to come here and bring this up. I brought it up because I was watching the board struggle with this.
No,
And
that's-
it's
that's-
something that's
That's what this is about.
relatively, across the board, most of these towns do it that way. It's kind of weird having a variance for a sign, so.
Is that the only time that they had this issue?
They said they've had it before,
Yeah.
that they've actually just denied signs because it's a variance.
But if
Trying to
that
meet
sign out there on the Ryan sign came in front of them the way it is before they built it, they wouldn't allow that, right? Because a special permit, you still
Right.
gotta meet the criteria, right? So,
Yep. So, again, a suggestion, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. We'll deal with it next fall, but.
it's up to the board. I don't have an issue.
I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, make a motion placeholder,
Second.
and part of the thing is, did you write it up?
I'll write it up for you.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we done with articles?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Joe, thank you for all the time you put in.
You're welcome.
Okay,
You're not
off we
done.
go. Hour being a little after 7:30. We have a continued public hearing on Baker Street.
Do you want these? All copies.
We missed you 2 weeks ago. Yeah, usually when that happens, we take the attorney, he brings us over to Napa Tandy's, but that was closed too. There was nothing open. And one guy I know ran out of here. Excuse me.
The letters on top I received this morning from Mr. O'Leary.
Okay.
The board has not seen.
If you wanna do it there, or can the camera, so the camera, it's more the camera, it's up to, it's, however, All right, as long as he can hit it, that's all we care. That's okay for you?
That's fine there.
Okay. But we now are open, and these are new stuff, correct, Kate? Okay. And that's passed. All right. We have, oh, good, now you can do yours.
No?
No, it's been a while since that. Okay,
been a
this is
while.
new information from the different departments, from Deputy Chief Paul Barry, Fire Chief. The fire department has reviewed the plans, and he indicated he finds the roadway acceptable for single house. He's also requested develop and follow recommendations on page 2 of the technical memorandum from Gillen Associates with regards to clearing, pruning, and vegetation to improve safety. From the Board of Health, dated January 3rd, at their January 2nd meeting, they voted to reiterate comments made at their October 10th, and I'm pleased that some of the initial recommendations are included on the plans. And from the Concom, Concom was already submitted on the reference property, so they have no more further comments at that time. There's something, before I get to you, Maggie, this different one, Kate?
There were, yes, there were 2 revisions. There was revision
Should I
2
be-
and revision 3. What's that one say?
Says revised too. Should I be reading those?
Those were before the ones you had, so you probably should, they've never been read.
But,
Some of them are superseded, but some of them aren't.
okay. That's what I want to know. Okay, Board of Health, I don't think we read those, did we? No. In regards to your reference plan, we'd like to reiterate that they'd like to, some of the changes such as street lighting and increase the street from 16 to 20. The Board of Health at that time did not still recommend sidewalks. So that's pretty much the same. Police Department reviewed the plans, did not have any impact on public safety. That's from Officer Luke Powell. From the Sewer and Water Commission dated October 24th. The Sewer and Water Commission concurs with the town engineer. November 28th, that's your old one, correct, Maggie? All right, and revised, okay, Paul had updated, so I don't need to read it, because this is what he'd done before, and I guess you did it. And he's all set with that, so the only comments left from any town board or department is Maggie's.
The letter you have is dated December 18th, is that correct? I just want to make sure I'm reading the correct one.
December 18th, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Just a couple of quick items. Number one, typically for a private way subdivision, there's a mutual maintenance agreement and easement documents for access. The developer's attorney is saying that the notes regarding maintenance on the plan is sufficient and that the documents aren't required. If the board agrees with that, they've never done it that way before, it doesn't mean it can't be done that way, but the responsibilities he referenced and detailed in note 3 should be included in the subdivision decision. It's gotta be set to record somewhere. Has it been discussed? I don't know if it's been determined yet who's actually going to own the actual street layout. So by the time the subdivision's decision is finalized, we need to know that, because the assessor will wanna know who owns it, so they can put a parcel number and which lot it goes with, if it goes with one of the lots. Let me see, will lot 1 be part of the Form F and I purposes if its legal frontage is on the new street? Will the existing lot need to be part of, the existing lot is, the existing house is part of is there now. Once it becomes part of the subdivision, will it be its own lot with its frontage on Baker Street, or will it need to become part of the Form I, Form F and Form
It
I?
has to be part of it.
Okay.
The frontage, the legal frontage, if this goes through, it'll have to be on the new street.
Will it? That's what I don't know, because it looks like right now it has both.
That's the legal frontage. Do I
Okay.
care where the mailman goes?
okay.
Or wherever the number of the thing? We don't care, but the legal frontage goes from here on Baker to here on the new
Okay, so
street.
then it is part of the form, that's, okay.
Correct. You can't have a subdivision with only one lot.
Okay. Condition of approval is requested regarding utility as-bills for our permanent record. Baker Street is under a moratorium until the end of June of 2020, so that any work that has to be done for the subdivision to excavate into Baker Street needs a request made to the Board of Selectmen. The revised plans show, quote, street lamps, but it should be stated somewhere that public standard streetlights can't be provided because we can't put them on private property. That just needs to be put either in the decision and/or on the plans. And I've been going back and forth with this subdividers surveyor regarding the notation of Walpole sewer base versus NGVD versus NAVD, and that, we still need to work on that, because I still don't know if it's right. Because Walpole's own sewer base is different from NGVD 29. It's different from, it's 5.32 feet different, which makes a big deal in survey technology. So we just have to make sure we talk to him and get that, I need to make sure he knows exactly what he's got. And as far as the traffic engineers, letters dated July 22nd and October 22nd, I believe there had been some questions to whether there was adequate stopping sight distance. You might want to have Mr. Gillen explain what he's proposed, because it looks like he's done a fine job of explaining in those memos the difference between stopping sight distance and intersection sight distance, and why the ITE requires or recommends that at least stopping sight distance be met, and that if stopping sight distance is met, that's the most important one. But you might want to have Mr. Gillen explain that for the benefit of the board and everybody else, because he's the expert. And the rest of them are just minor items. And I do know that there is one question that I didn't bring up in my memo, but that we found, my assistant engineer and I found, we had thought, it had been brought to our attention by an abutter that if you look at the cul-de-sac, the plan shows the cul-de-sac not touching, that all the land on the left goes with the second lot in the back. That, we believe, is correct, even though it looked like it at first. It wasn't, because if you take a subdivision where the street intersects at 90 degrees and the cul-de-sac is dead on, that will be touching, but it's not dead on. It's popped off it a little bit, and that's why that 1 foot works. Again, developer surveyor can verify that, but that's what we think has happened. We can tell by the math. I don't know if anybody had looked at that, but that was a comment that I made way back, but it looks like it's been fixed. And that's it.
Yes, you brought up a question, and then I'll ask if you can answer it. Given the fact that the road is gonna remain private, how is it gonna be deeded or whatever? How it's gonna be conveyed?
The intent would be for it to be private, and I guess similar to the note that the owner of Lot 2 shall be responsible for the maintenance of the driveway and utilities servicing said lot. Public standard street lights will not be provided. So the owner of Lot 2 is gonna be responsible for that roadway. The maintenance of the pavement, for the lights, for all of it, the utilities.
I'm assuming that's why your attorney said no mutual agreement document, okay.
Okay,
Right.
that's, I see
Did you
that.
say plowing too?
Everything, the maintenance completely of it. I mean, we look at this, it's like it's a driveway.
Correct, okay. I didn't see that on the note, that was my only question. We have some other stuff. That had come in today, this morning. It's a long letter. Pass them down. It's 2, 8, okay. So, and it's 6 pages of a lot that came in. Unfortunately, kind of a little late today to read it all and be able to digest it. It's kind of tough, and the fact that you can have a copy if you want. That's a good side?
I don't know if I
Wave.
have one.
Wave.
Can I take one, Jen?
Did you get one?
We'll have the original. I'll mark
Okay.
up that, right? That's
Hold
the
it right
original,
there, okay.
yeah. Thank you.
But we'll move on that for now, see what else we have. So there's nothing here. Maggie, all yours are recommendations, correct?
In the letter that I just read?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, the question I would have, you're under moratorium.
The street is, Baker Street is, yeah.
It's under
Basically, what would happen is they would make application, we would have to deny the permit, their appeal is to the Board of Selectmen.
And what typically happens?
They have a public hearing, they discuss the merits of the case. There's two or three of them a year, there aren't very many of them.
So what do they make, what do you make them do, since you're the one?
It would be more than likely curb to curb overlay and repave the street. We usually make them do an extra special, not just a little trench patch. Usually a wider patch, maybe take a piece out and redo a bigger section.
So you're not repaving the street, right?
No, it's just, it's primarily the area in front of where they are.
You wouldn't, you can make them go across so it kinda looks pretty?
That's what I'm saying, curb to curb.
We show that on the plan
Yeah.
too.
Oh, okay.
I had met with the
Oh,
town
okay, I'm
engineer.
sorry, okay.
So
that's-
We're proposing curb, there's no curbing, but curb to curb for the width of the street. It encompasses where we have, the fire department wanted a hydrant and straight through to where the pavement meets.
Okay.
Are you talking there should be improvements on Baker Street, or?
Typically, the town, once we pave a street, there's a 5-year moratorium imposed, which
Yeah.
doesn't expire till the end of 2 years, till 2020. For them to connect their utilities, they'd have to dig into Baker Street, permission that I can't give. The selectman has to give it because of that moratorium. Usually what'll happen is they'll have a hearing, they'll ask us what type of road repair requirements we would have. And typically, it's more than just a couple of inches of asphalt and patch the trench. It's usually, curb to curb, maybe infrared, depending on how old it is.
I see.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Maggie, because even though it's on the street, it doesn't affect us, but it would affect us if they couldn't get utilities, like sewer or water, or
Correct.
whatever. Or they have to show their own sewer, septics and their own, okay. All right. Did you wanna show us anything that's been updated since the last time?
Sure, both through, I guess, conversations with the fire department and the town engineer. So we increased up at the end here a turnaround to allow, we also went with a 20-foot wide pavement. We provided roundings down at the end where the proposed driveway meets Baker Street. We are proposing a 20-foot wide curb-to-curb roadway repair from just beyond where the fire hydrant, which that was also a request from the fire department. They wanted a fire hydrant put on this as well. So we're proposing 20-foot wide, which is the width of Baker Street, across the whole frontage. Anywhere that's gonna be disturbed with an eye of, we understand the moratorium, but that's what we'd propose and hope that it was approved. Trying to think, we, through again conversations with the fire department, they wanted the hydrant to be on the same side as the street lights to allow for if we was gonna be plowing on one side versus impacting those, so we showed that. Again, a lot of just some of the notes that I think the town engineer wanted to see about the maintenance, private ownership, who's responsible for the utilities, various things like that. And I think it's been a while since we had a meeting, and there's been 2 revisions in between, and I think each time we were just trying to accommodate. I think the 2 big sticking points was certainly public safety, and I think we're there on that one, and then making sure that the town engineer's comfortable with, as far as the utilities and ownership and drainage.
Okay, you all set? Joe, do you wanna go?
On this hammerhead and the proposed turnaround that the fire department recommended, how do we know, what's to prevent somebody from going in there and doing planting in there later on?
Well, I mean, it's paved, it's
It's paved in the hammerhead,
right.
but not in this, he's saying this other part here is open, right? That's acceptable to him. Is that what's acceptable?
I'm not understanding what, my understanding is, the plan has shown, so we did the roundings down by Baker Street, and then we come in and we allowed this hammerhead to, a turnaround up there. That's all proposed to be pavement.
And that's what the fire department is agreeing to?
I believe so, yes.
They're not agreeing to this other,
The circle? you mean?
Circle.
Yeah, no, that circle is the right-of-way that's required per the subdivision regulations.
Okay.
So we're asking for the waiver to not have the paved circle at the end, and in lieu of that, the hammerhead turnaround.
Could that hammerhead be extended so it comes out more? Do you understand what I'm getting at?
It could be extended anywhere to fit into that circle as needed.
Right.
But we tried both through the radiuses that are required through the fire code. And we had once, if you recall initially, I think we didn't have any down there. And then,
I don't think you've ever presented one.
and then revision 2, we had one that was just on one leg. So it
Right,
came down
right.
and it would turn around with one leg, and the fire department asked if we could expand on that, and that's what this represents.
I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but if you want to come up, sure. Is that okay, Mr. Chairman? Sure.
No, you go down there, Joe.
Come out like this with a 20,
It could, but if you, in those, should I go back to the microphone now that I see what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Under the fire code that deals with access, the hammerhead is an acceptable alternative.
Correct.
That other layout isn't, I don't know that that gets them anything. I mean, the turning motion is to get in here, back up, and to go out there and make it basically a 3-point turn. One other option is like a more of a Y-shaped thing, but this we feel meets that regulation. And again, having the letter from the fire department saying that they're satisfied.
okay, you're going around, in lieu of drainage, regular drainage, you're going around with the 3-foot. Why don't you go all the way around the hammerhead then?
Because of the way the road's pitched, so rain that falls here flows to that
Okay.
direction.
And these proposed trees that are on lot, they look like they're on lot 1. 3
They're
trees?
on 3 on lot 1 and 3 on lot 2.
Okay, and they're satisfied with that
Bob LeBlanc, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether he's been asked or not.
because he
We
didn't
had a
send-
letter from him, that's how I picked what the trees were. He had
Okay.
sent us something from, I think it was like the MWRA or MDC or something. He had sent a list with guidance, and I had certainly confirmed with him, but I had based that off of guidance from him.
Okay, thank you.
Kate?
Good, my question was in regard to the turning radius, and Joe addressed it, so.
Mark?
I'm good. All the departments, fire, have come back with approvals, so I'm fine with it.
Okay, so, so kind of what Joe was mentioning about that, showing the, like, the zoning circle, like the circle that would be required from the zoning bylaw. So that piece of the project, which is basically the private way, you're saying that's gonna be owned by the owner of Lot 2?
The purpose of that way is, the sole purpose of that way is to get access to Lot 2. So it functions as a driveway to Lot 2.
Okay.
But for the right amount of frontage, this would have been a Form A, that would have been a driveway, and Lot 2 would have owned it, maintained it anyway, because it would have been their property. So the intent is to have it mirror what that would be.
Okay, so on that area that's within the circle that would be required from zoning, but outside of Lot 2, can the owner put like a shed or something? I mean, can they put, I mean, is that their land to, no? So it's all.
It's part of the street layout.
But it's
It is,
it's a
their land,
private
but it's
street.
part of, but it's still part of the street layout. And
Okay.
others might have rights to it. It's their land, but it's not their lot. Their
Okay,
building lot.
okay,
They can put anything anywhere. Well, if they had to get a permit, you're supposed to get one from down the hall. And Dave says, no, you can't go there, you don't own that.
but a lot
I
of
mean,
times for
you
sheds,
will
you
own
don't
it, but
need.
it's not a lot. It's not a building lot.
Yeah, just like signs, you need them.
It's not a building lot.
Okay,
It's their land, but it's not a building lot,
okay,
I guess is the answer to that.
Will a shed appear there if they never, yeah, probably, but if you don't go for a permit, no one's gonna even look at that.
okay. Okay, so then I just wanted to confirm, so it's a private way, so they're not getting any like town garbage, no plowing?
No.
no plowing, I don't know
no
whether the town
town
would be-
services.
They get the
like-
trash.
I don't know if that's,
They do
I
get the
mean, if
trash
they
out
wheel
that
the
way?
thing
They
down
gotta
to
bring
the
it
end
down
of
out to
Baker Street.
Baker.
Because
Oh.
they're asking for a Baker Street address too.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, just like, you know, anyone else's driveway,
Yeah.
they're responsible.
Okay. And I just want to echo what Maggie was saying about the datum. Just change it to be, you know, the
Yeah,
NGVD
I
or
had
the.
gone back and forth. I'm not the
Yeah.
land surveyor, I'm a professional
Yeah, I just
engineer.
think you're just
So
inviting
when he
mistakes.
yeah, when he,
to-
I thought
To do
he-
a off,
We talked, and I am still not
You
convinced.
talked to Steve?
Yes.
Okay.
I will look it up again, and
Okay.
I'll get back to him.
Okay.
I may need his contact information.
I really
Yeah.
just, you know, it's.
No, I get it.
Pretty easy, I think, to just change it and
I
that
just don't
way,
want somebody to use the
Yeah,
wrong
people
base
are
because
expecting-
it is way off. It is
Yeah.
way different.
yeah. And then the details, you have details for signs and the roadway cross-section, which doesn't apply, so we just take those out.
Well, the cross-section does, it shows the paved, I mean, the cross-section that's proposed shows how this road's gonna be built, or this driveway's gonna be built. I mean,
It has your particular one, I mean,
Right.
you've okay, so
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, it's got the 20 feet.
As long as you change, as long as it's not the generic one that shows 26 feet of
No,
pavement.
it's not. It's 20 foot, it shows the
I see.
drainage.
Okay.
Shows where the proposed water and sewer are gonna be. So this cross-section reflects what we're proposing to build.
Okay. So the signs,
The sign, we
come
didn't know
out.
if you were gonna require a sign, so it's one of the regulations for the, in the bylaw that it says we have to have a sign detail, so we put it on there.
okay,
If the town wants it to say, instead of, you know, whatever way,
It's not gonna say anything, because you're gonna have a
Something
Baker
Baker
Street. That's
Street.
gonna, there's,
Okay.
that's a street sign for a street,
Yeah.
which there's going to be no street name sign, because the house is gonna have a Baker Street address.
Okay.
There'll have to be something down at the foot of the driveway saying,
Says Baker
whatever number
Street, yeah.
Baker Street, that way.
okay.
I
But
see.
you're correct, that one, you can just put if you don't wanna take it off, just put a big X through it, because it's the standard detail, but it doesn't apply to this
Right.
case.
And do we need a detail for the lights?
No, we're not involved with the lights.
I mean,
That's
it's
what
on, it's on the plan,
Yeah,
but
no, it
then,
doesn't matter. We
just-
don't control Eversource and whatever the deals they make.
They just-
Yeah.
okay,
The
okay.
way it used to be before they put them underground is they used to put poles up and then go down the street and go.
Okay.
So
Just point to it.
that's a big deal with,
That's
if they have,
typical, it's
problem
standard
with
planning board
Eversource.
requirement for public
as you
streets.
can see from tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
No, that's all I had then, thank you.
Okay, I had some comments that I only got read last time. One is a letter from October 17th, from Christine Cochran, and it says, we asked that this be read, and as an abutter to 26 Baker, we were sent notification of the proposed project. My parents live at 39 Baker and also abutters. The understanding we have is prior to being sold, an easement is being asked for by 26 Baker over their land to provide frontage for 26 Baker and provide and create the round of the roadway for the proposed house in the rear. Are there any statutes for this to give an easement over your own land? The proposed project has adequate frontage for both homes, both existing and proposed, so why are there waivers? This is dual purpose, and if allowed, will set a precedent which can be used in an attempt to create a house lot or non-building lot directly abutting our property on 765 Washington, which was created non-compliant. It goes on to say what was wrong with that. It is odd that the property, 26 Baker, was in the same trust as 765 Washington, deemed well, okay, that's nothing to do with what's here. The explanation is there are no easements you give. I mean, you could build what you have. If we made you build the whole road and didn't vote the waiver, then you would lose the 125-foot frontage right on Baker, correct? But you would
No,
still
because-
have the proper frontage from the setback.
True, but the zoning allows tangent, so.
Zoning allows
the-
tangent,
The
that's
front,
what Maggie-
yeah, when you, on a corner lot, the zoning pushes it right to there anyway. I mean, we just, we show it because that's what
Yeah.
the layout was required.
Yeah, no, I understand.
We're not even using it.
No, I know you're not using it. If you had to use it, my point is that
We could.
house at 125 could either be, well, it has, gonna have to go with a subdivision, but because it meets that setback of, what is it, 20 feet? What is it from the line, as long as you got,
It's gotta be, you mean your frontage at the setback?
Yeah.
Your frontage can be at the setback, but it's gotta be 80% of.
yeah, and it's more than 80%. Yeah.
And what he
so-
was talking about, the tangent, is you got your frontage from lot corner to the PC,
No,
but
but
you
what I
got
think-
that other distance that you
I
can
think what
take.
Christine was asking is that an easement?
Well, I think they're talking about, didn't you show a corner rounding easement?
We are
I'm
proposing an
it's the only easement I can
easement,
think of.
which would allow, if this subdivision needed to be built in the way that the required
Yeah, if we had a full book,
bylaw said, then we would be asking to build it over that easement. So if we're showing it, we're
So
not
would that
using
be-
it.
would that be an easement, Maggie, or would that be
It-
part of the town's?
Depends on, typically, that little rounding, that little triangular
Yep.
piece becomes part of the new street
Street.
layout. However, there have been cases, and I can think of at least two, where it's, I believe, and I'm not an attorney, but I believe it's done, instead of becoming part of the layout, actually the land, it's done by means of an easement, where the lot still keeps the land, but the right-of-way of the street goes by easement over it. And that's something you'd have to ask town council, but I believe you dealt with it on Savoy's Way, on New Fisher Lane, and Natalie.
But even if we didn't like that, we'd just tell them it's gonna be part of the road. It doesn't affect anything, correct?
Right.
You only showed us proposed, but if we said, nah, we wanna own it, and we made it do the full build out, that would come off,
Yes.
and the house would still meet the requirements of setbacks and even the square footage, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that was that letter. All right. You wanna be up, Maggie?
I'm sorry?
Let's see.
Up for what?
Well, there's
You
about-
did I did mine already.
No, no, you answered some other letters here. October 20th, okay,
On,
yes. Okay, you answered an October 20th letter.
okay.
Which person?
You mean mine dated January
Yeah, from
11th?
Robert O'Leary, okay, yeah, January 11th,
Okay,
okay. You answered what you could. And I don't know if they got a copy of this, but I can run through it. What you have here, yeah, the rest of it's all, you stapled to it. Okay, it was asked, that certain structures, proposed structures should be shown on subdivisions plans, section 13(8)(A)(5), zoning, but that section is site plan, so you don't show it under subdivision control laws. Frontage for lot one. The frontage for lot one is affected at the proposed easement. We just discussed that now. Even if we had to take it, he'd have the frontage because it's done from the setback, and even at the 80% mark, he still has the full cul-de-sac to lot two layout fits within his property, okay? That's what you said.
Yep.
Mr.
and
Jack?
that's because I believe Mr. O'Leary, when we had talked about it, like I was saying before, if you've got two streets that are 90 degrees and it's in a street layout that's dead on, where it's totally symmetrical, he'd be absolutely right. But if you look at the geometry of the street, it's tilted just a little.
So, good, okay. Jack Gillian, traffic engineer, stated the applicant, the site distance are adequate. Okay, if the planning board, that would be up to the planning board to do. The first paragraph, Mr. O'Leary cites Mass General laws. The point needs to be addressed either by board or council. Number 6, it's presumed that there will be a bond posted as needed by the developer, which will happen. On the second page of the letter, he references section 9 of zoning bylaws, non-conformance. This is not, these are not engineering issues and more to the commissioner, but even if it's in section 9 of the zoning bylaw, it's not covered under subdivision control. He indicated he believes errors on the plan are purposeful and indicate future additional development. You don't see anything on here that could, correct? Everything is pulled back from it.
I have no knowledge of anything that's done on purpose, but we might not anyway. I can't see that anything has been done on purpose. I mean, usually people don't. But again, I don't know, and I don't know anything about how this subdivision would be concerned with future development, because there hasn't, I've heard no talk of, no scuttlebutt, no talk or knowledge of anybody with a budding property that could be combined. I'm not saying it couldn't be, but we just haven't presented with anything.
Yeah, but what would have to happen is, first off, we got the little wall, I'll call it, to keep, it's not touching the other properties.
Yep.
So it's back from that.
Yep.
That's one protection. The other thing is because it comes in front of us and they're asking for anything beyond that, and they're coming out this way, you'd have to pick up the whole thing again. So whether they could do it or not in the future, they still got a lot of hurdles to do. And the chances are it's a 16-foot road, and it would probably, it would not service whatever's behind there, so. Could it? Yeah. But
And I mean, if this board placed the stipulation on the decision that it could only service one lot, I don't know what it would take, what steps it would take legally if
we
somebody
could say it
had
could
enough
service one
land.
lot, based upon our approval of the waiver.
Right.
But if they want to come back at some time in the future and build out the 46-foot, they could.
That's- yeah.
That's their choice. Access easement, roundings. Cul-de-sac does not touch the property, we just covered that. We did site distances, corner roundings. Regarding queuing vehicles, the board should ask to eliminate, him to elaborate, I don't know the queuing, it's one lot serving that. The first sentence of the paragraph starts with citation form from engineering dated 10/12. You got a statement that the sewer is for one single family. This should be shown on the plan.
That's a pretty simple thing, and they may have already done it already, because it
Okay.
really is right now only for one
Proposed
simple.
6-inch SDR, 35
Yeah.
sewer service to service one home.
Okay.
Another part, you answered that there's some violations that has nothing to do with you. Number 6, yeah, it's a typical requirement of the planning board, the developer retain fee interest in the street, that's, we do that all the time, especially if it's gonna become a public way. It's up to the conservation to determine if a land disturbance is needed. Earth removal under section 5D4A, grading with associated, that's all covered under subdivision
Yeah.
control.
I couldn't find it in the bylaw where it said that, but typically when you approve a subdivision, they have not had to go for a separate special, and most subdivisions have to remove more than 150 feet of cubic feet of material.
That's-
But they typically don't, it's grading associated with building, what's on the subdivision plan is inherent in, I just couldn't, I couldn't give you a citation as to where that
That whole
comes from.
section 5 is if you already have something, if someone
Yeah.
starts to decide they're gonna do mining or start doing,
Yeah.
removals beyond what's normal.
Yeah.
What's normal. So if this subdivision, they found a bunch of bad stuff and they're trucking out 10,000 yards, it
Yeah.
stops right there, but it's just the normal. And as a matter of fact, in site plan, if you do it in conjunction with site plan, if you're only taking out the normal amount that's used for the grading and not something beyond it, the 150, but you have to go through site plan for that. Requesting section 1375, yeah, there's no waivers because that's under zoning, I mean, that's a zoning book. He asked about taxing the road, that is a Dennis Fliss question, that's not with us or you. If the subdivision is approved with the proposed, it will not meet town standards.
For
How
public
could-
roads.
Yeah, for public roads. This road cannot become public because it'll say in perpetuity what was done on everyone else, correct? So we don't do that, and this type of lot has come up, and waivers have come up over the last 10 to, it's probably 20 years, Maggie? And basically, it's like, why are we gonna have a full build-out and own the road just to serve 2 or 3 houses? He repeated a question, I don't even know, I didn't read what you had, something about the private road. Talked about an easement, there's no easement needed here. Non-compliance issues, once again, those are not part of us, any non-compliance would be with the building department or the zoning. Cites perpetuity, illegal easements and power of alienation. He's not sure what easements that's up to, so you answered that. And we'll hit on, there's one, oh, here it is. December 4th, you answered this letter, dated the January 11th. And you open it up saying the surveyor does show the cul-de-sac not touching the western lot line.
I think that was the only, this letter only pertained,
The
this
geometrical?
Mr. O'Leary letter only pertained to the
Okay.
geometry of the
So,
subdivision,
which
that
is-
one issue.
And that, you've explained that where it was a little bit, okay, so we answered both those.
Yep.
We read that. Now, we do have a long letter that was just submitted today. I don't know what we can, at this juncture, be a little difficult to do. I mean, has anybody been able to look through it? Because there are 6 pages. Okay, I'll take a stab at it right now. Talked about trickery of play or whatever, why they need an easement, we already went through the easement. The round needs to be owned by the street. No, it doesn't necessarily mean we already covered the rounding, I understand what they're saying, but we've covered the fact that the rounding would either be an easement or through the town if it was a full build-out, but that's not gonna happen. They talked about the 30-foot frontage along Baker Street to be used for frontage for Lot 1 and for 106. Now, this, talking about the land, it's shown right now as 2 separate lots on a subdivision. Access proposed as street and Lot 2 should not be one and the same. Like, once again, we're talking about the rounding and the easement. A lack of adequate frontage, a frontage waiver for 26 Baker, when in fact it won't need it because it's going to become part of the proposed, it is, as a subdivision, the frontage will be on the private road. How can you say deed has no access to the private road, yet you own part of it? It would be no different than if the town owned the road, you can deed it over to all the maintenance for that, and that's all you're doing, is you're just deeding, correct, just the maintenance of it. You haven't deeded any rights away from Lot 1.
Right, just Lot 2 was responsible for paving, drainage, streetlights, their own
But-
sewer, their own water.
But they're both on that, so they both have access to it, so you haven't eliminated that. Title issues, I don't know about title issues on property rights of others, but that's, talking about lots 1 and 2, but that's, it's not up to us as lawyers, we're not lawyers, we're just here to approve the plans. If there are title issues, that's something that your client will have to wrestle with. Does the cul-de-sac break the continuity of Lot 2? No, it doesn't. Lot 2 owns both sides, correct?
Yeah, again, it was a very reasonable request from the town engineer. We show a detail where there's a 1-foot separation, so that's all. Lot 2 is this.
Yep. Lot 2 goes.
All the way around, yes.
And you do show that on this, and this is dated, let's see when they sent it, the 2nd. So, and this plan was re-upped. I'm not sure if they had this. And once again, we have a whole line, I think, of this. Do you have a copy of that, Maggie? Yeah, you're looking at the same one, right?
Look, the one
Yeah.
from today?
Yeah, one
I
does a
borrowed
cul-de-sac.
Joe's.
Yeah, okay. All it is talking about geometry, and you already said the geometry works.
Yep.
Correct. And is the applicant doing with the street? Once again, they will own the street, both of them, and one lot is gonna be required to do the maintenance. Something about Reagan Road where the planning board made a legal reference access is blocked to some backland. Well, we don't necessarily need to make, it's not our call. No one wants it, they don't have to do that. As a matter of fact, it's encouraged by planning, but it's not here, it's encouraged to make sure that if you have landlocked land, to give access, but 765 exists, so it's not landlocked. So. Doctrine of merger states and easement would be to stay, I'm not quite sure that's a legal thing. Goes on a whole lot of stuff, just a long page of a lot of legal stuff regarding easements extinguishing and given other Mass Appellate Court decisions and so on and so forth. and it says developers in competition with lot 2, ownership of rights, but as you said, they both own it, so that, if you can't have competing, same thing again, chapter 183, section 58 says if you can't have competing ownership rights on the end of the street regarding the lane with the same side and the other side, how can abutting properties have interest in the road? When the developers maintain 100% interest in the road, which he's not, once it's done, it goes to each individual lot, correct?
Well, I mean,
Whole thing goes to
The
lot
ro-
2.
No, they each own it, but the maintenance goes to lot 2.
Okay.
and,
So
I
that-
mean, this, lot 2 is on this side of it, and lot 1 is on that side of it, so if it were to revert back for some reason, it would be in the middle, no different anyway, so.
Yeah, but, okay, and the way it's constructed is they will both own the road, but only one guy's in charge of the maintenance. Okay?
So then when you deed it out, you're gonna have to divide that lot into that street layout into 2 separate lots, so the assessor knows what he's got, unless it all goes to one. You'll have 2 separate road parcels, right?
The attorney's gonna, I mean, he looked at
I'm
that.
sorry?
I think the attorney looked at how to split it up or whatever the language has to be, but like I said, the intent is it's a private road.
Well, yeah, but we never
Sole
entertained.
function is to get to this lot 2, and lot 2 is gonna have to maintain everything that they need to exist, so.
Yeah, we never got into that with any of the other ones. The only ones that come to mind is Peach Street, where the first portion was, they both split it, and then beyond that, the guy on Peach Street says, I don't need that, you got the rest of it. And, which is.
Just where it stays private, somebody will own the whole thing, whether it's one or both, or a combination thereof.
Or like a condo association that owns the road, however they set that up. I don't understand where 2 easements merge into one. That doesn't have anything that, I think what we have here. This is not a statutory private way. A waiver is being requested, and they have asked to make it private. Goes on to talk about frontage to come off the easement. Once again, we've covered that. Have we been asked to waive frontage? No, we can't waive frontage, because we're not allowed to waive Mass General laws. So on something about 784 Baker would be tipped, but 784 Baker is not germane to this. Who's paying taxes on the easement, the roadway? 2 owners of the property, lots 1 and 2. And who should have the rights to easements, but we will not have any easements when we're done, correct? There will be no easements when this is done.
Well, we're asking to.
Oh, you're asking
for
just-
that easement right
Yeah.
down there.
And that'll be part of lot 1.
Right, yeah,
So lot 1 will give an easement for that.
right.
Okay.
And, I mean, its sole function is so that we could lay out something that meets the layout that's required by the bylaws, but it.
Okay, that's,
So then if that's an easement, this piece of land, the actual little triangular piece of land is still owned by that lot as part of their aggregate land area, where are you putting the layout of the road? Is the layout of the road gonna actually fall
No, the layout of the road doesn't go across that. That's, everything that serves, so the pavement, the rounding for the pavement, everything falls within our proposed layout. The only function of us showing that easement is to lay out something that meets the regulations for the right-of-way that's required under the
So
planning
the
regulations.
right-of-way will follow the curve.
Well, the easement will.
Okay, so the actual,
Yeah, it serves-
so the actual lot will have a 90-degree corner,
Yes.
Yes.
okay. And that
We could have
roadway-
asked
and
to-
that roadway, and that piece of the roadway, that rounded piece of the roadway is created over an easement, but the piece of land is still owned by the lot,
Right.
okay.
I mean, we could have asked to have a 90-degree angle and asked for a waiver
Okay,
to
I
the
get
turn,
you.
to the
Okay.
to the rounding, but we just wanted to show that
Yeah.
we could build this if we needed to per the regulations. So we left it and said, why not just call it an easement?
So their frontage, their actual legal frontage on Baker Street is out to the corner? To
Yes.
the point, gotcha.
All right.
Which even if you did a rounding, would still be their frontage.
Correct.
That would still be their frontage.
Right.
Yes.
Mr.
right.
Chairman, could I request just one?
Sure.
Can you add to the cover sheet, just like, you know, the verbiage, a two-lot, single-family residential subdivision? Or something like that? I don't know if you want to add a two-lot, but single-family residential.
I mean, we're not showing a proposed house. We're asking to create a road and a buildable lot. I mean, the zoning tells you that it has to be a single-family residence.
You're just asking in the title
Just-
block.
just
In the title
in
block,
the-
a
in the-
two-lot
in-
subdivision, so when you pick it up, you don't know whether it's 2, 10.
Okay.
If I pick this up, we always like to see on the front how many lots we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, and
That's
what
just a
kind
clarity,
of,
it's
I
not a
can- yeah.
legal binding thing, it's
Okay.
just a matter of, I see what Sarah says, because this definitive plan 26 Baker, that's all.
Okay,
A two-lot subdivision.
will do.
thank you.
You all set, sir?
Yeah, thanks.
All right, if everybody's all set, any questions, comments from the people? And I ask you to come up to the podium, please.
Hi, Christine Cochran, 166 Peach Street. I just had a quick question. On this sheet, it says the developer shall retain fee in the street. So if you look up the definition of fee, it does say that an estate of land. So who is going to own the street?
Lots 1 and 2.
Is that true?
Yeah, the question.
Who is owning the street?
Lot 2.
No, you can't have it. Lots 1 and 2 own the road, lots 2 maintains the street.
Correct.
Whoever sweeps it and plants the flowers is lot 2, but they both own it together.
Jointly.
In perpetuity, or?
Yeah,
Yes.
and they have to do that because if you said only lot 2 owned it,
Right,
then lot 1 would not have frontage on that road. You'd be
Sure.
excluding him from that.
okay. So why does it say this on here? Should that not be on here?
What, the fee?
Yeah, developer shall retain fee in the street.
No, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way it is on all plans. The developer owns the fee interest because the developer's coming to us. After he sells everything, he conveys that. So
lots
we're only dealing with the guy in front of us right now, the developer, so that's why
No,
I
I
always
get
tell
that,
the
but
developer
it's
fee
just-
interest.
It's hard to tell who owns the street. And a question, so in order to grant waivers, you have to show you can do this
Correct.
fully? Okay. So normally you would have two 30-foot rounds in 46th Street.
Yep.
So the round closest to Washington Street is 29 feet.
Can request a waiver. It's 29.
Still doesn't fit requirements.
But again, it's a waiver on
You have to show that it
the
will work.
layout for the road, but that's not what's
Right,
gonna
but
be
you
built.
have to
but
show it will work before you can
It's
grant
true.
a waiver.
It's true.
It's supposed to be, Maggie, 30? And it's only 29.
Yep.
Yep.
Is that, you could ask him whether that was done on purpose, maybe, was it mislabeled, maybe? He's got 30 foot
the
on the
30
easement.
foot's
30
clear,
He's got
the
30 foot on
29.
the easement side and 29 on the other side.
What?
Maybe, that would be a question for the surveyor then. Why did he put a 29 foot when 30 was required? And not ask for a waiver on that side, or did you?
Well, we're asking for waivers for the roundings, we are.
But did you present a plan showing you could do the 30 foot on both sides?
Yeah,
You did
not-
on the
not as-
easement side.
yeah, not as part of this, but way back in the beginning, we showed a layout, and even if that were to go 1 foot more.
Yeah,
as
it's
we
the other side, not the easement side, the other
Right,
one,
but
that one.
if everything shifted by 1 foot, this lot would still be the same as if
Yep.
you have frontage on the
I think what
street.
she's saying is, did you present did the original approved plan show a rounding on that side as 30 feet?
I believe that it did, but I don't have.
Was that the September one?
Survey.
But it doesn't matter.
That's what Christine is saying. That's
I
all.
understand what Christine's saying, it doesn't matter what the plan of record is the latest plan we have, okay? And their comment is right, is you're supposed to show everything, and to do it. And at least in my opinion, you should come in looking for all these waivers, and you can't even do it to start with. You know, don't ask for a waiver of something on what you have. If this was, if you're gonna do the full build-out, I don't think I'd have an issue with it, because it's on the 46 foot. But given the fact that you wanna shrink it down, you don't even meet the criteria, and I think that's what she's saying. So, at the least, you'd have to show us, shift it, and
I
make it
thought
30.
he has, but again, I'm not
Well-
the surveyor, so it's not on this. I thought that he had done a demonstration plan in the beginning, so.
Well, but
Well, we can do that.
I don't see it in the old one.
yeah, I don't even see it.
Going back, I don't see it.
They all say 29.
Yeah. So, you can't even, to get out of the box, you're gonna, at least in my opinion, you have to show that it can be done, okay? Because I'm not, you know, I don't think, at least my one of five is I'm not gonna start giving waivers on something that can't be built, to give something that makes it a little, when someone comes in like this to do one of these, you gotta show us you can do it, and then that's so. You'll have to redo the plan on that unless anybody has any, anybody all right with that, or to show that you can do it? Okay, so you have to come back with a plan. You got anything else, Christine, you all set, or?
I'm a little confused how you can use an easement, it's almost like borrowed land to fit the requirements too. I'm a little confused.
Well, that's how Maggie explained it. You're talking about the rounding easement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I have a long lot down Peach Street, I could get an easement from my neighbor and, you know, throw
You
a
can,
house in
yeah.
there.
You could, yeah, you could do that if
Yeah.
they want. They're only doing that now. If this road was fully built out, they could either leave it as an easement to that property owner, as Maggie said, or they can just give it away. Either way, they can meet all the criteria they have to. It doesn't shrink their lot or make them non-conforming or anything.
Okay, so is it going to be a single-family home? Because it was kind of unclear about that too.
Well, for us,
It doesn't matter?
we approve the road, what they put there, but this
Okay.
is a Residence B. It's only, Mr. Norton's gone, but it's gonna be a single family. They're gonna build within the zone.
Sure. Okay,
You all set?
I think so, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions, comments?
Robert O'Leary, Precinct 3, a butter. Did I understand correctly that, and this goes back to the first meeting when the board mentioned, is this going to be more than one additional home? And I really haven't heard back from that until tonight. And did I hear right that it was said that they could come back in the future to add to this road?
To add to the road?
Another home?
No, not to this road, no. You're stuck.
So it's just what it says, it's a subdivision of two lots,
Two
one
lots, yeah.
existing and one additional.
Well, you can't say, no, and as I always say to people, is everybody says, well, it's an existing house, yeah. Dirt has been here forever. Every time you make a new line of paper, that's a new lot. And that's the same thing here. So this is a subdivision. To have a subdivision be in front of us, you have to have two or more. That's a subdivision. If it was a single, it'd have to be an A&R plan, and you'd have to have the correct frontage. That's why they're doing this road, because they can't meet that criteria.
So if somebody does an A&R and it abuts this road, they can't link up to it
You mean from behind?
from the side?
From the side?
784.
I suppose you can do anything you want,
That's what I'm getting at. I mean,
but I mean, you can buy the land, you do whatever you want, but you.
that's what happens. I mean,
Yeah.
in subdivisions. They add land, they take away land.
Yeah, but they have the rights to do this. This is gonna be two, the only issues they're gonna have here is if they redo it, and, you know, we could speculate forever, but lot 2 would have a big issue getting connected, because right now it wouldn't have enough, frontage. It'd lose the frontage, because the road would go through.
Well, the frontage would be off the road. Because there's
Yeah,
excess frontage there.
If you're gonna hook into that way, right, you wouldn't have enough here, wouldn't have enough land.
Well, we've looked at it. There are things that can be done if they're
Of course, there's
serious
things
about
to be
it.
done, but
So,
it's gonna be a 16-foot road, and someone's not gonna walk in here as long as I'm sitting here, says, I wanna build 4 more houses through that 16-foot driveway. It's gonna be no. And it'd be up to the people, 20. 20, I'll get, yeah, they're gonna have 6 houses, but they'd also have to have those 2 people agree, because they're gonna own the road.
I'm just saying it's possible.
Anything's
And
possible.
I wanted to know whether that was going to be allowed in a secondary subdivision or re-subdivision of another land. In other words, if somebody wants to subdivide his land and
Yeah.
make an agreement to use that road, what's stopping them?
To use that road,
If they meet the area and frontage requirements.
but they'd have to come back to us, and we'd
Right.
have to say, wait a minute, this was a 2-lot subdivision, and you're on a driveway, so to speak, 20
Right.
foot. We wouldn't have to grant them that.
But you could.
Yeah, you could do anything, right? This isn't one way or another opening up the backland. Matter of fact, doesn't even touch it, so.
Okay, I didn't follow everything that was said concerning the ownership of the road. I'm going to assume that the fee in the street is something that's common to you. It's not necessarily that the developer's actually going to own the road, that the 2 parcels abutting it are technically going to own the road, and that would be typically to the midpoint, depending on how it's written.
However they want to do it, or they can, however they divide it up, you can own fee interest, or the town, this one they won't, but a regular one, they take the whole road. But we still do easements, so we never own the whole road.
We never own.
But we have the easement to
Yeah.
it. So however they divvy it up, it's up to them how they divvy it. The normal way would be split it right down the middle.
So we'll assume that the south round, which is the one next to 26 Baker Street, is going to be owned, that land by 26 Baker Street.
The what? The road?
The round,
The round.
the
Yeah,
30-foot
yeah,
round.
that's on his property.
So that part of the road will be owned by 26 Baker Street.
Well, that's not gonna be part of it, that's the layout. 46-foot layout. We never built. We built a 26-foot road.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't understand why it's still not part of the road. If the road has to be legal, I mean, that's what I hear them saying, that it's
Okay.
not part of the road, so,
It's
you know.
not gonna be built upon. It'll be an easement for this to show that, prove that they could do it. And they'll own the easement, but the easement will never be used for the road itself. There's no need to use it because the road's only gonna be 20 foot instead of 26.
But it still has to be owned by one party.
Yeah.
It can't be owned by 2.
No, it's on lot 1's land, yeah.
Okay. Has it been answered why they do need this easement? Is it simply as what we just talked about, where they're showing that they can do it legally?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's why it's being requested that they actually show the 106 feet so that that can be done. So because of that, a frontage waiver will not be required because they can count the round as part of frontage, because,
No, they're taking their frontage. Their frontage is now going to be on the new street.
all right, so it's no longer on Baker Street, on
Correct.
26.
Yeah,
Okay, so we don't have to argue that.
correct.
Okay, so we talked about the proof plan. I'm not gonna get into, I can let my brother do it if he wishes to. Response to Maggie, I understand the neck if you basically take the circle off and you just put it back on slightly differently. But just as I look at it, I don't have enough information to look at that and see that number change, which is the 1827 versus the 1896 feet, that difference in, that alone doesn't tell me that that's actually doing that.
Mr. Chairman, I think if you want to put that issue to bed, you're gonna have to have a surveyor address the geometry.
The wood,
Because he's questioning, remember I started talking about the 90-degree street? And he's saying he doesn't see it. I got a surveyor, there's not enough math on that plan without an AutoCAD plan to tell you exactly what he wants. If you want that to be refuted, I can't refute it anymore, the surveyor will have to come in and do that. You gotta, it looks like it's off-center, and I can tell it's not off-center a lot, but it looks like it's off-center some, and that's what's canting it over. You got a surveyor stamping that plan, I can't tell you anymore. If you want that explained anymore for his, so that Mr. O'Leary understands it, you're gonna need a surveyor to do it. I can't, I don't have the AutoCAD data.
See, I'm not able to take those dimensions that
surveyor
they
furnish
use.
that data?
Yeah, I'm not the surveyor, but he certified the plan, I mean.
No, I understand, but all we're,
He stamped the plan and he's
Data.
saying that's the
oh,
way
and I
it
understand
is.
about the stamp, I go through it all the time,
Yeah,
and-
right.
but I'd like to see that 1 and 1 is 2. I just like a little bit more, that's all. If he has to have the math somewhere,
Well, the map,
I
that's all.
mean, all the math there is
math
on that
there.
plan.
I mean,
So he
that's-
didn't need anything else to prove it up?
I don't think so.
No, I mean, we drew it, he drew lines on the
You, I
paper
thought,
with the computer.
well, I'm listening to Maggie about the AutoCAD, would've had more information.
It may have, I don't know. Mr. O'Leary's not satisfied by me telling him the math.
If he has more information, if not, he says, that's it.
Different.
That's all, okay.
I mean, certainly the AutoCAD file
Yeah,
would have
it's-
information,
yeah.
but, I mean.
I'm not sure how much different it
To say
would have.
otherwise is to say that
Yeah.
he's certifying that the
Yeah.
lines don't
No,
touch or something.
okay, that's fine, but if you could just give us the AutoCAD, just give us a copy of it, that's all.
I'm not even sure that's gonna do that much. I'm not sure how much more, you know what it
We
is?
can't ask
In the
for
olden
much.
days, you could
I'm
sit
just
with grid
asking for
paper and
that,
write.
just
You
prints
can't
out what
do
he
that
has,
now.
gives it to us.
Maggie, is
I
there
know
a
he's
particular
stamping it.
dimension that's missing?
No, there's nothing missing, but what
Okay.
I'm telling you is if you look at the roundings, where you can see it is, you come up the straight part of the street, the roundings that go into the cul-de-sac.
Uh-huh.
If that was a symmetrical cul-de-sac and everything was even, they'd be exactly the same, and they're not. That to me tells me that it's off just a little. It's not
Okay.
much, but it's a little.
Yeah.
And you got a surveyor saying that it doesn't touch the line, the property line. So that's what's telling me that it doesn't. There's nothing more, I can't give
If
him
he
any more
has
math than that.
something for it,
to-
please
to-
submit.
to-
If he's, has what he has and he's good with his stamp, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's not, you gotta do, he's gotta redo the plan anyway.
When you say has to redo the plan.
You gotta put
what
the
does he
30-foot
have to
rounding
show?
on.
He has to,
He
have
has
to
to
move.
show that it can be built,
No,
the
but
30-foot.
forget what we just talked here, we're talking about the roundings. You're gonna have to come back and show
but
it.
if we ask for a waiver, to,
For the
this-
30-foot to 29?
right,
Well, that's what I said before. I'm not in favor of giving a waiver before we even get into the waivers.
right. But, see, I hear that, and I know that he went through that exercise, you don't have that benefit, so I think it's as simple for him to go, oh yeah, that's right here, hits print, and off we go, and then we're back to this saying, here's how we could build it, but we wanna build it this way.
Understood, but we need a plan that
need
says
that. I get
30
that.
foot.
Yep.
How we, that's all. And if he happens to have some additional information, comes in at 8.5 by 11, that's fine, on the other stuff. That's all I'm asking.
Yep.
You know, I look at one of the plans that says the north side is being 189.84, and then they have 200 on the current plans, and, you know, you ask, is it a typo, or what does it all mean? And I can't obviously take those two bends in the road and be able to use that to,
Well, he's gonna come back
Take
with
a
a
call.
plan, and he's gonna correct the 30 foot and show us what else he has, so.
now, I know you mentioned some aspect of this, but it was brought up at that Regan Road subdivision regarding access to our land. And there was a bylaw that they referenced. And then I'm wondering, how can you actually block off land? Is it because there is access other places? Is that's what they said before?
We're not blocking off landlocked land. Is the land behind them landlocked?
In my opinion, it's not.
So that's, okay, so you don't have to give access to it.
But I haven't had any acknowledgement of it other than my interpretation of it.
Okay, what do you call it, 764 Washington?
Well, the actual paper street would be at 770.
Well, there's no, paper streets are gone, they don't mean anything anymore.
Paper streets were created, and then they...
Disappeared in
Right,
1971.
but they still exist in reality because they need to provide frontage. You
Well,
can't revert back from frontage.
I'm not gonna, because we're getting a little late here, and we're doing geometry, and I wasn't very good at
Well, I got a lot
geometry.
to go through, I'm trying to limit it too.
All right, but, I mean,
So
we're
I'm
now,
trying to get some feedback because, you know.
all right,
these are
right
things that
now,
have been
he
brought
has,
up
there is no
before.
access to that lot because it's pulled back a foot. So that's it. The guy, this is what he wants to build, he can do that, he pulled it back a foot. That's all.
So you're okay with that?
Yeah. Why, what do you want me, he doesn't have to connect it. It's not up to him to connect to somebody else's property.
See, when I read the bylaws, I don't read that.
We went through this on Peach Street, and I heard about the Joneses landlocked. They have this on Washington Street, this on High Plain, and someone was telling me the Joneses were landlocked. Same thing here. This is up to the individual. He's got it away from that. That's what he's doing. That's his choice. If you had a piece of land in the middle and owned by somebody and didn't own anything else to get to the street, that's landlocked. We might consider, hey, what do you want to do here?
Well, we might be here a while if we want to discuss that.
No, we're not going to discuss landlocked. We're discussing this plan. As a matter of fact, I might start cutting it short because, Bob, we went through your letter. I did that, trying to be a nice guy, that you walked in at 11:15 today, dropped it on, and said, I want this on tonight. And we're all supposed to jump. I think we've done more than enough. So I think you're all set as far as I'm concerned.
Are you challenging something I haven't brought up?
Am I challenging something
Yes,
you
are
have?
you bringing up some issue that I don't see before us?
Okay. Your January 2nd letter was dropped in our office today, correct?
What's the issue?
Did you just miss what I just said?
Yeah, but what's the issue?
The issue is you don't walk in to a board at 6 hours before the meeting with 6 pages of stuff and expect us all to jump through hoops.
I didn't expect you to jump through anything, and nor did I say so.
Well, what did you expect to be done with that letter?
You're bringing that up, I'm not.
Okay. Done. Thank you.
I can go through the letter without you reading it, if that's what you choose.
Okay. We've had enough on this because you guys have drifted off to different lands that have nothing to do with this plan.
No. Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
yes.
You drifted off, I did not.
We're done.
We're gonna continue.
We're done.
We're gonna continue.
We're-
It's a public hearing, and I have not finished.
Really? Is that how it goes? I've done this before. Where's my phone?
What's wrong?
I said you're done.
Right, but you created.
Not right. A public hearing by this board. I'm the chairman. I run the meeting. We've gone through enough. I said you're done. You're done. You've said, no, I'm not done? Doesn't
I'm not
work.
done.
So you're gonna stand there?
And can't I stand there and repeat?
You're not, no,
What
we've
has not
already
been
gone
discussed?
through everything you had. There's nothing more. Would you please step down?
One-sided.
Really?
One-sided.
Thank you.
He's right. You gave them all the time in the world, and you didn't allow
Sir,
him to
sir.
finish what he said.
Sir, please. This is a public meeting.
Yeah,
Please conduct yourself properly.
yeah, I'll speak to my attorneys, thank you.
Thank you. I'm more than love to have that happen. It's been had enough. I've had Maggie spent many hours on this over geometry. They're gonna come back with us. I don't know what more we can do on this. But this seems to be about someone else's land and not what's in front of us, and that's the issue I have, okay? So, anyone else, questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, this is exactly about what all the town officials are referring to. Is this about one additional house lot in it,
No.
separate from the existing house, or is it about more? That's what it's about.
All right, we're done with this. We're not, yes, John?
John O'Leary, 776 Washington Street, Abutter. Just a few points on the geometry issue. If you look at the latest plan, there's a couple of errors or points I just wanted to raise that, as if the engineer brings in additional information, can be items he can look for. Maggie has mentioned that the cul-de-sac could be offset to create these 1-foot lots. I agree that's possible. The issue is the plan doesn't show that. All that they need to do is show that at a point where the road meets the cul-de-sac, there's a change in angle to show that the cul-de-sac is offset. Another point is, I believe my brother mentioned, if you look at the plan, I'm looking at page 3, Lot 1, the south side of the lot shows 200 feet. The north side also shows 200 feet, yet it stops at a point where the curve begins. So obviously the north side of the lot can't be 200 feet. One of the older plans showed a different figure. I believe it was 184 or something like that, 189. If that figure can be corrected also. And I believe it might be useful if a center point for the cul-de-sac is shown to clearly show that the cul-de-sac is not touching the two borders. Going back to the site plan requirements, I believe item number 5 under the site plan requires them to locate the house on their plan, and they have not done so on any of the recent plans. And I believe item 6 requires them to show buildings on adjacent lots that abut this development, and the garage on 784 would probably be useful to be seen. Any questions on what I've said? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments? Okay, being none, we're gonna need extension of time so that you come back with your 30-foot rounding. So. Need an extension? Okay. What do we got for the next meeting?
Does that need to go out back in that plan? Like, can they come back in 2 weeks or do we have to check?
Well, it's a plan, but it's only for that, which would be highlighted, which would be clouded, so.
So it doesn't need to go back out?
We could send it out and just tell them that's the note, like I've said in the past. That way they're not going through the whole thing
So they
again.
want to go to the 1st or 15th?
Well, it'll be up to, well, you'd have to have it here back before 2 weeks, so Maggie gets a shot at it too. So we're at the 18th. Can you make the 1st, or you have to give us 2 weeks ahead, or the 15th?
The 1st of,
February.
that's 2 weeks from today, right? So,
Is it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then you have to
So
go
I
the
can
15th.
almost guarantee I won't have a plan 2 weeks.
Oh,
before
okay,
that.
so, all right, we need an extension up through February 28th?
Come on. It's taken a year.
Now I got another one that doesn't like the way things run. If you don't, then take your plan and go home. It hasn't been a year in front of us. And I would like to say, because I am getting a little PO'd, you're the one that delayed this because you didn't have the cards out proper. That's why. We didn't have all the cards back. We didn't have all the cards back.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not gonna argue with you.
Well, then be quiet back there, because you picked a fight with me. Thank you very much. If you don't want to give it, ask your client. If he doesn't want to give it, fine. We'll just kill it right now.
When's the next meeting?
The 28th, February.
The next meeting is 20th of February?
No,
Next meeting's the 1st, but they need a plan 2 weeks ahead of that, which is today. So we don't have a plan today, so
Well,
have to go
does it
February
have to be
28th.
exactly 2 weeks since we only?
No, it has to be 14 days. That's the rules. Now, take that whatever you want.
All right, whatever, that's fine.
Gee, I'm sorry that our rules don't bend for plans that aren't correct. All right? You're gonna give it through the 28th of February, correct?
Yes,
All right.
please.
I'll make a motion to accept a extension up through February 28th, 2018. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? Okay. And what do we got for the 15th?
7:30?
7:30, so we'll continue this 7:30, and do it a favor, is do something that most people don't, do it in the architectural world, put your clouds around what you've changed. Or if the guy wants to bold them up.
I'm hoping he comes too, because that.
Oh, that's fine.
probably would- But yeah, so can I just, I
You-
wanna make
what,
sure.
how many? Six half-size too, correct? Excuse me?
I'm to show a plan that meets the rules,
The 30-foot.
and that could be standalone, not part of the submission, is that?
No, it has to be, put it all together.
Okay,
That way it doesn't get lost.
and hopefully a clarification, or how he came to.
Yeah, if you have something to that effect.
F, and maybe in between
Have 'em
then,
labeled.
a datum.
One of the things you wanna put on, which I think will help them, those roundings into the cul-de-sacs, he shows radius and curve length.
Right.
Typically, you only label two pieces of information because the other one you can get. Have him label the angles, have him put what the angles actually are. That might help them see, because they should be different angles,
Right, I mean.
because
but-
they're different curve lengths.
Right.
So have him label, put that
They're
extraneous
tangent
piece of
curve,
data.
and I get, we
Right,
won't do
yeah,
this,
yeah,
yeah, I'm not,
Yeah,
To make it easier for
Yep.
everybody,
yeah.
maybe don't cloud, but if you can bold on his machine, everything that's changed. That you look over here, this went from, 200.01 to 200.15. That way, you can go quickly back and forth. That makes it a lot easier for everybody,
okay.
all right?
Don't forget, we came here January 4th during the snowstorm to continue you to today, so you wouldn't get a declination, and we would have had to start all over again.
I do not forget that,
Thank you.
believe me.
Well, you could explain it to someone
I will.
else. Because
Thank
if we didn't come out with a snowstorm, you would have to start again.
I know.
I was here also. There was not even here at 7 o'clock at night. I was here.
I know, and your hearing is at 7:30. Wow.
I made the effort.
Mr. Chairman, can we take a little break?
Yep.
Thank you.
Continue public hearing. Okay, and we have some additional comments. I'll read those before we kick it into gear. Let's see. We have one, let's see. Make sure I got, Maggie, you got your December 4th comments. We have an updated from the fire. And I believe that's it, Kate? Okay, so we have dated January 1st from Deputy Fire Chief Paul Barry, and it says, "This fire department has reviewed the application revised plans for the above-mentioned subdivision and offers the following comments. We are not in favor of the proposed dead-end street being greater than 750 feet. Reasons being, if for some reason we are unable to travel down a dead end or roadway, our capability to respond to emergency is very limited. A block roadway that extends beyond 750 feet would a block roadway that extends beyond the already approved 750 feet would only, excuse me, exacerbate the problem. With the block roadway, our limited on-duty staff would be presented with logistical challenges, providing adequate equipment to the scene of emergency. 2, we find the 2 hydrant locations acceptable. We'd like to work the applicant on the final location, the turnaround, and we're in favor of the loop water main. So that is what we have, and Sarah had sent something to him, and that's why we got to further asking him on that to reiterate.
Is that a new letter? What was the date of that? I don't think I have a copy of that.
No, it's the same thing he said before.
Yeah, but I didn't get a copy of that explanation in my letter.
What explanation? What I just read?
Read.
Yeah, he said that back on,
He just reiterated a previous letter.
Oh, okay. It's not in this one that I have, all right.
yeah, it's, matter of fact,
January 1.
yeah, we have one on October 30th first.
All right.
He just, what he said was, we are not in favor of the length of the proposed dead-end street being greater than 750. There are locations in Walpole where dead-end road is greater than 750. This has been allowed with residential requirement. We still have concerns due to safety and accessibility with granting a waiver beyond the 750 feet, and therefore we support the waiver. And what he did is he further went on to give an additional reasons that wasn't outlined there. So
Okay.
that's where we are there. So we have a fire chief not willing to go with deputy fire chief who represents the fire department, so, and that's a waiver request,
Correct.
okay? So we might as well tackle that now, correct?
Well, yeah, sure.
We don't got a choice.
No, I agree. And, is this on? Let's make sure. I'd like to go through what we've submitted and go through some history of the property and then discuss the waiver and some of the options that we think we have to overcome that. So if that's okay with the chairman?
Rob, we could do the history. I have a letter here, at least what we all got. It says, I'm not in favor of it.
That's okay. I agree. I've seen the letter. But I would like the opportunity to present the project and the history of the project and where it's at. And
Okay, now let me ask you questions. Were those presented to Paul Barry?
this was what was submitted to you folks.
No,
I
but
don't-
all
I
this
don't-
other stuff you want to do to convince us,
I'm not trying to convince you. I just want to go through what we submitted. And then you make your decision accordingly. Is that asking too much to go through our submission?
the submission for a road, my opinion is if he doesn't want it, he shouldn't have it.
That's fine. That's nothing wrong with that opinion.
All right, we got board members, you know.
I think what the chairman's saying is
I get it. Yeah.
address the issue at hand before.
Well, we've submitted a lot of information. We submitted the plan to you that showed a 750-foot road, which you folks have, you submitted. We submitted a density package which showed some loop roadways developing the entire site, which Mr. Wakefield had started back in 2003, which showed this property when it was 20,000 square feet. He rezoned it, it went to 30,000 square feet, so it went from 40 lots down to 29. And now we have a plan before you that's even less than that. So I think it's important to see the history of it and what's going on. A couple of things we haven't discussed is, we could do a 750-foot road, absolutely. We could do a loop road within ourselves as well, which you have a copy of in your packages. So I do think the history of the property and the development of it is important. I know we're looking at one side of it at this point in time. I mean, we submitted to you this plan, which you have revised, which shortened the road somewhat, which is not within the 750 feet. We submitted to you this plan that showed what a 750-foot road would look like for discussion purposes, because you asked for that. We submitted a density plan, which showed the entire property being developed, which is the Isaac's Path, which we had a subdivision submitted, we withdrew, so we plan to come back
I
with.
never saw that.
We never have that.
I never saw that.
No, that's all.
Absolutely have that. There was a density statement submitted with those plans.
The density statement, I read the density statement. The density statement references enclosures, and there were no enclosures with the density
These
statement.
were submitted with our whole package, with the
Density
revised plans.
statement I got from Liz after she left, actually, that didn't come to me.
To be honest with you, I don't think I've ever seen that.
I haven't seen that.
Nope. I know I've never seen that.
That went to Liz.
That's a little frustrating because it was submitted to this.
To
With the
Liz.
enclosures, and I have them here.
I'm just saying, I didn't.
That was all
it didn't
submitted to the
come me,
department.
it went to Liz.
That, well, okay, I'll make a legal clarification. Liz Dennehy was not the planning board. It's just like submitted to Maggie, submitted to Rick Mattson.
That is like, I took it off her desk after she left.
But the question is, what's in front of us right now?
The long dead end.
Well, I thought this was in front of you as well, as for discussion, because we submitted it as part of the package and we wanted to talk about it.
But we didn't get it.
We
You know-
submitted to the planning board office, where it went from there.
No, you submitted it to Liz Dennehy.
And I asked her to share that with the planning board.
Okay, but you,
I didn't get it.
Well, that,
I'm gonna give it to the document.
well, it's not gonna matter, they haven't seen it.
Well, we have this, Dave.
They have
Uh,
that.
Dave, but we don't have the attachments. We don't have any enclosures that came with it. That was one of the things that popped out at me when I was reading this. No enclosures.
It was submitted. I don't know.
it was submitted to the town hall.
Well, it was submitted, yeah.
With a note to Liz.
But given the fact that I'll even defend what happened here, given the fact that Liz is left and everything in there, I'm sure these would have turned up somewhere, because that isn't something you miss.
Whatever, I don't know how to explain why you didn't have it at this point in time. Is it a moot point to discuss it right now?
Well,
I mean-
what's the point? Why don't you just go over the point of that?
Right, so this was a plan that we submitted back in 2003. David used it as a density for development of the entire property. So this is the castle on this side showing area B, and this was the subdivision we submitted for Isaac's Path, was on this side of the site. And this is the Nichols Pond side. So this was a development plan that we submitted showing how many lots you could get at 20,000 square feet over the entire property. Now, since that time, he went.
Can I
in
ask you,
and-
so I'm gonna stop you right there? You submitted that plan to whom?
This is Mr. Wakefield.
Yeah, no,
It went to, he used it for rezoning.
all right, so it didn't get submitted. It was used for
It was
rezone.
submitted with that packet, so you could see the overall history of the
Okay,
project.
I just wanna get things straight, so
Right.
if we have issues
It was
down the road.
submitted for, it was submitted to him for use of a rezoning of the property.
It was submitted as part of a private petition.
Correct. So with that, we came back and we redrew it as a 30,000 square foot zone, to rezone it to 30,000 feet, I'm sorry. And what that did was reduce the total number of lots down to 29 lots. Now, this was back in 2003, and you can see there was a roadway that came in around the castle, developed the entire property. So I think it's important to know that, to some extent, on how this property is being developed.
It's
So
good.
it was 29 lots.
Is that,
Since
is that
time-
drawing prior to Barakaya
Yeah, I
being?
was gonna go there.
Yeah,
So,
it looked like.
since that time, he's developed the Barakaya Lane, which is 2 lots, which I actually show on another plan, which you can see here. So these are the 2 Barakaya lots. And in addition to that, there were 3 A&Rs on East Street, which are these 3 lots here. So with that, in the overall project with the 2 subdivisions that we were showing there, this plan showed a full depth build-out of 29 lots. This plan down below, which is what we were proposing today, would show a total of 21 lots. So it's a reduced density of what could be developed if you went with something with a loop road through itself. Now
Okay,
this-
or time out. that plan was 2003.
Correct.
When was Barakaya done?
That's what I'm showing you
No,
right here.
what year?
After.
So this is what it looks like with Barakaya taken out.
No, when was Barakaya done?
It was done after that.
Correct. Now flip back. Don't go too far.
Well, I'm going
No,
in
no, 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 I'm going into time.
Okay.
So, what was presented as a private petition was a connection up to Lafayette.
Yeah.
All right, that's how it was, so, after that time, this thing became off the table.
I'm still talking.
I understand, but my point is, Rob, is.
I'm presenting.
Is you're trying to, you got this rezoned based upon I'm gonna connect over to Lafayette.
Okay.
That's.
Correct. So
Thank
since
you.
that time, Barakaya was developed and a cul-de-sac was built. Which takes me to today. And if I showed the full build-out without Barakaya connecting, and I took out the 2 lots that were there, and I took the 2 lots that have been sold in the front, and I go back to this plan, I still have 25 lots, less those 4, which is 29. So I'm still there on the lot count. We came back with this plan. This is what our planning is for the overall parcel, is to reduce that even further to 21 lots in total from that 29 originally, which would be a cul-de-sac with a castle, preserving 6+ acres around the existing historic castle, and then doing a long dead end on this side, which would be the remaining lots. I forget how many I actually have, but in total, we end up with the overall land only being developed into 21 lots. So if you go back to 2003, it started at 40, it went to 29, and then the proposal that's coming before you is gonna reduce it even further to 21.
How does that address?
Nothing,
even
it doesn't,
remotely
it's just
what
a
the
history.
Fire chief is.
Well, it
saying
doesn't
to you?
address the fire chief, and, you know, and we have some ideas on that, maybe we can talk about tonight, that we haven't discussed.
But we didn't create the
I get
problem,
that.
hear me out, of had Barakaya not been developed and developed or built the way it was shown, it represented the town meeting, we wouldn't be here, because it would have connected to Lafayette, and Paul, Barry would have no issues. So,
Or if we loop the road around, we'd have no issues.
you can still do that, that's your option.
I get that. But we think the best planning for the property is to reduce it. The cul-de-sac waiver would be the best option for the land, reducing it, preserving the castle, the land around it, and keeping it in its historic presence. Now, what we haven't discussed, and I talked about this week, and it never came up between Dave and I earlier, is I never talked to Deputy Chief about an emergency access to Barakaya. Now, I don't know if that's something the board would consider. It's been done in the past in other areas, maybe not in this town, but in other towns. We make an access that can go through, but we don't let it be a road. It just gives them emergency access, secondary way in if there's a problem. I haven't proposed it to anyone. I'm just speaking on, as of tonight.
Did you ever meet with the deputy?
I was just
chief?
gonna
Oh, yeah.
say, have
Mark
you ever
mentioned-
sat down
mentioned
it
and
at the
discussed
first
with the
meeting.
chief?
I've sat down and discussed it.
Since November, when we
Yeah.
discussed that?
And Dave's attorney spoke with the chief.
Well,
you
why do
asked-
we keep on getting all
Mentioned it
these
before.
We
letters
spoke-
saying the same thing?
Because, well, what his words to me were, like, we spoke about the sprinklers. We talked about sprinklers. I said, what about sprinklers? He says, I don't care about sprinklers. You can sprinkler them all if you want. I don't support the dead end. That's my recommendation. I don't make the decision, the planning board does. This is just my recommendation. Sprinklers or no sprinklers. That's the way it was left. So, I mean, I went and spoke to him, and the idea was, we talked about the sprinklers. He didn't care about sprinklers. He could have sprinkled all the houses. Could have sprinkled the 4 after the cul-de-sac. He was still gonna make the recommendation that he made. So that didn't matter.
Yeah, because his issue was
I don't-
not with
The
the
sprinklers,
sprinklers, it was with
With
the dead end.
access.
Yeah,
with a
the
dead-end
access.
street.
This is an issue, though, when you look back, that isn't just Chief Barry's, like, he's not just being he's not being difficult. This is, precedent was set before this. I mean, Chief Erickson had done the same thing back.
Well, the project off of Fisher Street is a very long dead-end street.
If you look,
Thousands.
yeah, if you look back, though, it's,
Lone vote, no.
Lone vote against it, I will admit. But that was a dead end that was what? A couple thousand feet in length. And they had the ability to connect to North Street, and they didn't.
But guess what? Well, a lot of things were in play at the time. If you don't want me to relive it, you can watch it on TV.
We don't
But
wanna
you know
talk-
how pissed off I am
we
against
don't-
that one. But what I'm gonna say, Rob, all right? We did not, there was no letter from the fire chief that said this is no good.
She just said there was history of it,
But not from that, I'm
Not
sorry.
from that, I'm
No,
sorry.
not on that one.
on that project.
Correct.
But if you go back, I mean, I can quote Chief Erickson's letter. He goes on about the turning fire apparatus on a dead end is time-consuming, dangerous, and difficult. If for some reason we can't proceed down the street, our capability to respond to an emergency is very limited. Our response time will be increased if the roadway were blocked. He limited it to 600 feet. A 600 feet dead-end roadway is considered the maximum acceptable distance for emergency response. The reasoning for the 600 distance is that in theory, firefighters can stretch their hose or carry equipment this distance in a fairly short period of time. In Walpole, we would be hard-pressed to handle an emergency beyond this distance without waiting for additional help. So and I'm not saying that it's never been done.
No,
All
I
I'm
know.
saying is that it's not just Deputy Chief Barry who's carrying the load here. It's a safety issue, and that's my hurdle with it. It's a safety issue. It's people's lives are at stake.
So what about emergency access?
I think that's up to chief.
Yeah, but I don't know, I mean, what are you gonna do? Are you going to make a gated cut through to Barakaia?
I wouldn't,
Barakaia is a driveway.
Right.
We all know that.
You only need access for emergency vehicle.
And one of the houses on Barakaia is not even built in the right spot and cuts right through the land.
I wouldn't, I wouldn't put it there, I would.
You know what I mean, though.
I
I
know
mean,
exactly what you mean. I would move
Well-
it down and around.
Is it possible, how long is Barakaia? What's the length of Barakaia?
probably shorter than your driveway.
400 feet.
Yeah, but then you gotta add Lafayette to it.
You have to, oh, you do?
Yeah, because Lafayette feeds out, Barakaia feeds the
Lafayette feeds out as
Lafayette
well.
feeds.
What-
So there's
we
no
going?
possibility of putting the lots at the end of Nichols at the end of Barakaia?
Oh, coming in from the other way and going 2 cul-de-sacs? At that point, why wouldn't you just connect?
If you've been up there, it doesn't make sense
Well, I'm trying to satisfy the
together like
chiefs.
that.
Yeah, but at that
No,
point.
because then he'd kick on, because Paul wasn't here when Barakaia was done, then he'd have the same thing again. You're going.
Yeah, you're coming from a different direction with the same.
And forgive me for this, because it's been so long we've been doing this, but didn't we say Barakaia was a private way?
It is a private way, correct.
And I think there's verbiage that says it has to remain that way in perpetuity, isn't it?
Well, what it means, you can't,
But you could have an access.
Yeah,
no,
but the
you can bring it
deed,
forward as a public road. It's private now.
You
but
could-
But you'd have to bring it and do the 46-foot, the full build-out. What it means is you can't ask the town to accept that 16-foot road and maintain it. If you wanna come to be a big guy, you gotta step up to
You'd
the
have to
46 feet.
redo it all and build it and
Yep.
make it up to standards and make it public.
So I think, in
Well,
case.
the
So
other-
the chief has not
issue, too-
offered any solutions other than shortening the road. Deputy
I didn't
Chief Barry.
offer up anything for about emergency access, like if we gave him some type of, I don't know how wide he'd want it or anything like that. I didn't even discuss that with him, I'll be honest. I could go back and discuss that. I don't know.
I
mean,
think Mark brought it up in the first meeting,
What
about
emergency-
like a gated access.
is
But
it?
then
then I went up to Barakaia, and,
Oh.
It's a narrow,
Well, I mean,
it's
it-
like
I
a,
mean, even if you have a gated
Could've
access,
discussed
what are
it
you,
with him
what are
a
you
long time
zipping
ago.
through? I mean, that's literally a driveway.
you're going down the driveway. It's a
But I-
common drive.
And I see both way, and they've done these, like up at Iorio Rink or Rodman, through the, you got a gated thing, you know the parking lot to the right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, they
Just-
got it at Swan Pond too,
Yeah.
out back at Crane.
And what Paul's saying is, if he can't get there, or the truck gets stuck, he can still come in the other way. And he still has the access, because they're fine with it. I think he's just looking for that second means of egress, that's all. But,
I haven't brought it up to him, I'll be honest, I didn't even think of that at that time, it wasn't in my thought process, but it's something we could discuss for sure.
well, the way I see Rob is either we take the vote now, or you go see Paul.
Oh, I don't want you to vote denial.
Well, you know what, and again, I'm inclined to always take the recommendations of fire and police. But he also wrote in that letter that, and I forget which response it was, but and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, I understand this is a perfect storm scenario. And, you know, but this is what I feel like.
Did you say
How
that?
often has this been no, I saw that.
Oh, you read that?
I read that.
Through that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you read that through
I was
the line.
looking for the verbiage, I didn't see it.
My question is really, we're talking, what's the length of this road?
1,020
1,020?
to 1,000 feet.
It just seems to me that there would have been a conversation trying to work a deal out with him, but
Can't even find it.
I'd be interested to know how many situations like this exist in town.
But that's.
How many issues
It's
we've had.
irrelevant, because this is the call of the guy who's there now.
Well, I understand, but how many issues that we've had
He-
with that scenario?
Well, no, that's maybe why he's doing it.
Probability is of that
Not
happening,
necessarily probability, have they ever had a problem with that here?
or in any community around
Then,
here.
I guess it would come down to, you get a response back from the different departments, he says he's not in favor of it.
I mean, I understand the safety issue, clearly, but I'm wondering how realistic it is with everything else in town. I mean, we just talked about a road that's got a hammerhead turnaround, that there's no way that ladder's going down there and turning around if it has to.
Because that's a driveway, I mean, it's masked as a something.
That's you guys ended up making that 20 feet, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, like I said, I'm inclined to always go with what the chief says. But I just would like some understanding how the 200 feet, 250 feet is, we can't find a solution for that. That's what bothers me. That doesn't include cutting through to Barakaya.
Would you like to sit in a meeting with us, with him?
Well, all the information, everything you're gonna get on why whatever we have is gonna come from them.
Correct. No, I'm just saying, I mean.
So,
I
you
will
go
meet
into
with
the
him
World
again.
Book Encyclopedia to ask him why you said this, and he's got
I'll
all
go
the
meet with him
information.
again and ask him if there's a solution to the problem, like emergency access or whatever.
That's,
You know, if he would be comfortable with.
then you can
having
ask him
emergency-
that. I don't have an issue with that, Rob, at all, because the way I see is 750, I'm not gonna give an approval on something, and I would certainly not wanna live there, and I gotta tell you what, be a hard sell. I don't know.
Live where?
To live with the last few houses, when you have a fire chief said, I may not be able to get up there, a deputy chief.
I would.
What do they do
What
up
is-
at that,
What's the town's liability when you have a fire chief that says that?
what's that place up on 27 just before
I
Medfield?
think it's a conscience issue.
Oh,
Something happens,
Yeah.
how do you
I
sleep?
know what you're talking about.
What is that? I forget what it's
Bless
called.
you.
Jory Lane?
Yes. Is that Tory Lane?
Bless you.
No, that's like,
That's long.
that's
Oh,
long.
that's longer than 750.
That's long, and it's probably, if it's 15 feet wide, I'd be surprised.
My
Oh, that's
street is
another
very
one,
long.
that's,
My
That's
street
not
is
Jory.
Fisher.
Fisher,
yeah, it's 1,600
I mean,
feet.
Frontier Drive,
and that's a cul-de-sac
For
as well?
Stonegate.
yeah.
Is it
And
longer
I'm
than
on the end.
750?
I think so.
Well, you're screwed.
No, I didn't know that.
That's not
before now.
Walpole, though, we're talking Walpole. Yeah, I mean,
Close
other
enough, right,
towns,
Luke?
Okay, let's,
it's just, it's a number. It's a number someone, that's what he's comfortable with. Other towns have different numbers, like Rentham's 1,500-foot dead ends they allow. You know?
They have better
But they have
hoses.
different, maybe they have different
They bought the
personnel.
longer hoses.
It's
Number
just,
of-
it's really, this has been a thing that goes around in all the communities. Some people are 500 feet. Some people don't allow them at all. Dover doesn't even allow dead ends.
But the bottom line is,
Right, I mean,
the
it's
chairman's
all,
right, our fire chief,
it's your fire chief, he wrote the letter.
right.
And you guys have to some extent, respect that, I guess, right? I mean, you can't just,
Well, we have to respect
I
that,
would
because he's the
be
professional.
willing to go to
in the
your
bylaw.
little meeting if you want.
absolutely.
but let's remember this too. 750 feet is our bylaw. You're asking for a waiver, so you're asking
get
for
that.
more.
I know.
And now everybody gets upset because the fire chief says no? Oh, what do you think? I'm sorry, say no too.
Yeah, but we're asking for it for good reason.
No, you're asking it for, you say you're reducing this.
Right.
Guess what? Had the plan of 2003 stayed the same, we wouldn't even be talking here, because you'd be zipping out to Washington Street right now. But someone changed that plan of Barakaya when they did that. Not my problem.
What is the issue, other than cost, of
Loop.
of creating a loop that doesn't, that you don't build out, you just create it as emergency access?
How would I not build it?
Can I,
You
can we,
could, I'm just
can we
saying-
show the other plan again with the loop? Can I see it again?
As opposed to, see, the Barracuda thing is not just about the width of their driveway, of their road, it's about that becoming obviously a second cut-through from Washington to East.
Where's the
Yeah, but
castle?
we could put that in a position where it couldn't be. I could make that so it wouldn't be a cut through, if it was emergency access. I've done that in other communities. There's a way to stop that. We can
And you
stop
don't
that.
wanna ruin the poor people who live there's,
Well, that's the thing, I mean, that's,
Yeah,
again.
but you don't want, if, you don't want the
Then you'll see
person who
it's
lives
not
here
viable.
every day, cause he's going that way to cut through.
no, I know, but I'm saying even if it's just access, you don't wanna change the whole look of their
Yeah.
property, you know what I mean? That's,
If
There
if
could
that
be
were
ways
an
to do it,
option,
though.
do we have to
Because they'd have to do the
re-advertise and
setbacks. They'd have to be the 30 foot from the.
changing?
Yeah, but we're going through there with a water line, so we're gonna clear a swath going up through there, which is going down. We're not going through this strip in front of his house where we have that reserve, and we're going around it. So it goes around this way. So we have access to get in there, and that's gonna get cleared. It'll be a, 15, 20-foot clearing to go through with a water line, to run the machines up there. There are ways to do it where we could, maybe you could grass that and put the grid system in it, so you can just drive
Does
over
it have to
it.
be paved?
That's, it might not
Could it
have to
just
be
be a
paved,
fire
I don't
road
know,
that's not
it would be
paved?
up to him if he, as long as it's cleared and can support a vehicle, maybe it doesn't have to be paved.
All he said is I got one way in and over 750, I'm on agreement.
Correct.
So however you get him there, if you have a Sikorsky sitting there to pick his trucks up, go for it.
Helicopter, bring him in, bring him out.
But, question I have is connecting to Barracuda, private road, who owns that?
David has the rights to, we've already gone through that.
I-
We can go through it again, but
Does he own it, or does he have the rights?
I'm gonna let him speak on that.
We submitted a letter that I own the fee in the street layout.
So you own the road in totality?
Yes,
Okay.
46 foot wide.
So it's,
But if we did get the waiver, we'd give that right up.
and I'm not saying that, just because we just went through the one before it, who owns the road when we're done? That's my only question.
Right.
I'm not doubting, it's,
Anyway.
just one. So, you wanna vote, or you wanna go see Paul?
No, we'll go see Paul. Joe, you will come to the meeting?
Sure, I'd love to. I got a couple of ideas myself.
I liked,
Which
I
is-
liked
can always
Sarah's
make- I know he
idea of
has
making the
time.
cut through.
Which one?
I liked your idea of making the cut through on the loop, you know
I
what I
like the
mean?
loop better.
Oh,
Because then
this?
you're not disturbing those poor people who are already established.
What is the hesitation on the loop, just out of curiosity?
The castle.
On the loop, what's the hesitation of the loop? Is it just taking away from what is existing there and
The
the
castle.
history of the castle and everything?
Right.
Would the castle need to go if you did the loop?
No,
Where
it's
is the
sitting
castle?
You could go behind the castle, right?
Sitting right
Part of
here.
the road.
I think we're talking about an integrity issue of the property,
Yeah.
if it's developed one way or the other.
But if you just did access, it wouldn't be developed,
If it
so.
was just a fire road, a fire access road.
But that's not up to us, right?
Yep. Go see Paul.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
question, when we talked about potentially going from Barakai before, we mentioned, I thought that we couldn't even discuss it because it would have to be like re-advertised. Like the butters were not
If we
properly.
connected the road.
Yeah, so I'm just asking the question, so if it were just only a fire access, is that,
Well, the only
Doesn't matter, or
notification is
do
if
we
he's
need to-
gone, no, if he's gone beyond, before, it would have been a connection to a road, and you'd have to tell people we're making a connection. Now,
Yeah.
if you're just making a street that
Fire
has no
access, yeah.
access, I doubt, I'm not gonna say 100%, we can always get an opinion on that, is you would. My thought is, Sarah, is if you're gonna connect to Barracuda and you're gonna have to upgrade Barracuda, your notification would expand beyond that. That's what would have happened. So people up on Lafayette would have probably been affected who weren't noted. That would be one of them.
so we should
That
just
would be
be
part of the subdivision.
cognizant of.
If we were redoing
of
it on
that
the road, I would
issue.
agree with Jack on that.
Thank you.
Did you write that down, Kate?
Say that again. Are you gonna stay there, or you're gonna refuse to leave?
Rob, what's the length of the road when as the cul-de-sac ends at lot 6 and 7? Is that 750 exactly?
one here?
Or less?
That one there?
Yes,
750,
exactly.
yeah. Right to the end of the right of way.
So you gave us your whole speech.
I feel better now.
Because you're getting paid for it. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
He sat here for 2 hours, you had to let him talk. I went through a whole, you spent an hour and a half on a one-lot subdivision, you gave me 10 minutes.
I can get them back. That castle will fall down before it gets through.
Does anybody have an idea of how long it is, the Lafayette to the end of Baracaya from Washington Street? Is that more than
I know, I
750 feet?
I don't know, I can find out, though.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This one?
I mean, from here out,
Just from the end of Baracaya out to Washington Street, how long, is that longer than 750?
I don't know.
Shouldn't be.
I don't think so.
No?
What'd you say this was, Dave? 300?
Your plan, your scale.
Yeah.
It's not small.
So it's close to the 750. So if there was a fire access gate at the end of Baracaya,
Still.
technically, if the same once-in-a-lifetime scenario happened on Lafayette,
At the same time.
fire
it
apparatus
happened
could
on-
come up Nichols and get to Baracaya the same way.
And if it happened on East Street, on one end or the other, at the same exact time,
Then the Sikorsky.
we'd never get there.
Right.
Well, then with Bill Hamilton, you say if a tree fell down, what would we do? Take the chainsaw out, Bill. God.
Rob, for informational purposes, I have the letter that David wrote November 21st in which he made an offering.
Yep.
And he mentioned this 2-acre parcel with an ID of 27,381,009.
This piece back here.
Okay, it wasn't on the,
It was in the A&R when we cut the front lot, so it's already separated as a 2-acre parcel.
that whole parcel that you're pointing to is all 2 acres?
That piece back there is 2 acres.
Okay.
Yeah, it's back, close behind all his houses.
All right, since,
It's already a separate parcel on one of the A&Rs when we took these lots out on the
It's
street.
not on the assessor's online database, though.
Oh,
It's assessed for right.
no, on the, being on the GIS?
Yeah, I couldn't find it. It wouldn't come up when I pressed punched in the numbers.
You won't see it on the GIS maps updated. Those haven't been updated, right, Margaret, in a long time?
If it was cut out as a separate parcel, is it registered land?
I haven't seen the GISs get updated in
If
a
it was
while.
separated, we update the maps every year, so if we get a map showing something's cut off, if we get it back from the registry, we do it.
Oh, all right.
So,
On the
but
Mass
if-
GIS?
No, our own GIS, Mass GIS, I don't know what they do.
Well, that's what I mean, on your own GIS,
Yeah.
it's updated?
Should be, if we got the plan back.
I'm gonna look at
If,
that.
if it's not changed, then we didn't get the plan back.
Yep.
And if it's registered land, we most definitely didn't get the plan back.
If it's registered, you wouldn't cut it back.
We-
No,
no,
that
we
side's
don't.
not registered, the
Okay.
other side is.
Okay.
all right,
So I will set up a meeting.
Good.
And Joe, you wanna come?
Yes.
all right, we
Wow.
need extension.
You need an extension. Do you need an extension, Kate?
What else we do?
Yes, through if it's done January 31st.
Through February 28th?
Is that enough time?
Now,
What do you wanna do? I don't care.
well, let me ask you, can you get everything done? Sweet talk and revise the plan?
Well, we'll give you an extension till
20,
the end of March.
okay, fine. But now I need to know when you, okay, that's fine, give us the end of March, when do you think you'd be ready, so we'd schedule for the next hearing?
We'll come in on the 15th, if that's okay, 4 weeks. If I give you 2
You'd have
weeks.
to have your plans back before that, the 2 weeks ahead.
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm gonna do yet. I'm just gonna try and go meet with the deputy chief first and then figure out how I'm gonna attack that.
Okay, so if you're gonna we could go March 1st then?
March 1st?
Yeah, the
You wanna
next-
go March 1st, David?
Yeah, that way you've got time.
Yeah,
All right, what are you gonna give us, March 31st?
whatever you want.
Yeah.
March 31st? Yeah.
What else do we have on March 1st? Anything?
Nothing?
March 1st. When do you meet in March, just so that, make sure the 31st.
First and 15th.
When is it?
First and 15th.
First and 17th.
And you don't go to what, April what?
I don't know.
First Thursday in April?
And then April 5th.
You want it through April 5th, just in case something happens?
What?
Gotta go one more day.
On April 6th, in
Like
case
10th.
something happens, you miss a meeting?
Oh, you're going skiing?
I'm gonna go to April 6th for you.
No, go to the 10th because I won't be in that Friday because I don't have a meeting.
So is this for you or us? The 10th? 2000, we're gonna do a Teddy Hager one, 2021?
Yeah, 2021. Okay.
We have, make a motion to accept the extension, take action up through April 10th, 2018.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, as far as, do you think you could get everything together by the first meeting, or second?
The abutters speak first.
What?
Want to see if any of the abutters want to speak?
Yeah, but I just want to find out to get this,
We'll go to March 1st. I mean, yeah, March 1st.
what is that, is it March 1st? Okay. Okay, April 10th through.
It's
8.
30.
I'm doing all this at once, and it's 7:30 on, we will have that, so that works on March 1st, okay? Now, we can go. Just wanna make sure I got that, because I don't wanna miss that, because you guys would walk away with it. Any questions, comments? Yep.
Hi, Mike Fanaki, Bearkai resident, 4 Bearkai Lane. I'm not sure should I even address right now, is it even worth my time to address the access, the emergency access road that was just proposed? Yes?
Sure.
All right. I'll get into that in one moment. One thing I wanted to say, that from a resident perspective, and Bob is here representing Lafayette as well, our initial issue with what was happening with the development of this whole plan was the cut through to Bearkai. When I initially purchased this home, and Shane, who just had to leave because of the length of time that the prior meeting was taking place, we purchased this home under a certain premise. The premise was that it was a 2-lot subdivision. There was a mutual maintenance agreement. It was going to be a private road into perpetuity, and that was that. And it was not going to connect anywhere else as far as we live there. That's why we purchased these homes. Now, Dave and Rob had come to us when they initially started this new subdivision planning. They wanted to be transparent with us about what was happening, and we were okay. Dave has a plot of land, and he has all the right in the world, as far as I'm concerned, to develop what he wants to develop over there. And I'm more than happy for him to do that. I think what's frightening everybody here is that there's going to be some sort of a connection at some point in the future. I see that the board seems to maintain that an actual public roadway wouldn't be viable. I hope everybody thinks that from a emergency perspective. But also, if we were to go down this road and create an emergency access way, I see the same issues happening. That road is 12 feet wide, threatening 12 feet wide. There's kids on Lafayette. There's little children on Bearkai. You want a fire engine barreling through at God knows how fast to try and get to another road to take care of an emergency, fire. It just doesn't seem viable. What if there's another fire on Lafayette? We're faced with the same issue. I can't even get a Peapod truck to go down that road without getting stuck somewhere. Never mind a fire engine. It just doesn't seem like a viable opportunity. It might be worth it to have, and I'm just throwing ideas out, to have the fire marshal or whoever to come out and take a look at the road. I don't know if he's familiar with it or not, and just see that might be more dangerous than actually giving an extra 100 or 200 feet. I know there's, I've done my research in the towns, and I understand that he has a job to do, and he thinks that there's a certain length of road that is safe, but there are many other towns in the state of Massachusetts that their minimum requirement is longer than 600 feet, 700 feet. They're up to 1,000, 1,200 feet. I don't know why that is, but it just, I don't know why it'd be more dangerous in Walpole than another town for it to be, over 1,000 feet. I personally like what Dave and Rob have brought forth with the road that they are currently developing, and I think it's in the best interest of the town to do that. That's pretty much everything I had to say. Thank you.
All right, before you go, just so you understand, well, first off, they're gonna get down to your house, so if you had a fire there, they'd do all that and all that. And in reality, if they're gonna service anything on Nichols Pond, they're gonna come up East Street, because they're not gonna go to go where you guys are, it'll take forever to get up to Lafayette, and they don't run out of East Walpole anymore. But what would happen, it's happened in the past, is this pass-through would be a locked gate.
Mm-hmm.
So The
Okay.
only time it would be open is if something happened, they couldn't get out, they come around the other way and just unlock the gate.
Right.
So there'd be no through traffic there.
Okay.
So the only time you would see them, if something catastrophic happened on the East Street side. It doesn't have to be catastrophic.
Or on Nichols Pond Lane.
That's where, yeah, on the Nichols Pond side. So the chances are anything ever happened, probably not, but the gate will be locked. That's what we typically do for this access, because if not, everybody's gonna go in and out of there, including the town trucks and they plow and all that stuff, so.
Right.
It's from, so your own house there, you wouldn't see much effect.
Okay.
Does that?
So
seem-
if
I mean,
they
I-
did that, though, do they have to make improvements on Bearkai
No.
Lane, or no?
No.
Just for the gate, they
No,
wouldn't do anything?
it's kinda like another access, well, it's already an approved road in the
fire
town.
road.
Yeah.
Okay,
We built a fire road, so
so you wouldn't do anything?
Well, I mean,
Okay.
if you've been up there, though, they're gonna have to do something, because it's,
It's,
But-
yeah, I mean.
This is if they needed something, all right? And the chances are, you know, the what if. And that's all he's saying. So it will be a locked gate, so the gate may rust and fall over before they ever open it again.
Right.
plus when your kids start playing soccer, you'll be able to have a key cut through there, get down to Bird to the field
Yeah.
3 times as fast.
Yeah, it'll be the people in Lafayette and Barrakai going that way.
Yeah, probably. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep.
No problem.
Rob, I can't see, can you point on that particular, not that one, the one on the,
The guy
yeah,
come up now.
can you point to where the castle is?
Sorry,
Which
I didn't
lot?
know if you,
No, that's fine. You can- This one's a kid.
the castle right there.
Okay.
I'll miss and hit the 911 button.
So it's lot 15.
Okay,
Signal.
that's it.
The universe is telling us something.
That's her cue.
Hi, Bob Tanderan, Lafayette Drive. The only comment I wanted to make is that Barrakai Lane I can't imagine a fire truck very easily being able to swing into there off of Lafayette Drive. It's not a very wide road.
True, it's a driveway.
It is.
But when it got approved, they had their shot at it, the fire department, they didn't have an issue with it. So it wasn't like someone cut this out, you know, back
No.
in 1800s.
I understand that, and I have that question too. I mean, how do you get approval of that? I mean, if you got a small fire truck, you could get it down there, but I don't know how you would ever get anything, a ladder or anything large down there.
If I'm only gonna speculate, if I had to guess, he's more looking like an ambulance type of
That's
deal.
his biggest thing.
Because, let's face it, unless you're completely cut off at the start of East Street, and he's talking about pulling the hoses, you should be able to get up a couple 100 feet, hit a hydrant, and then pull them. And I think what he's looking for, what happens if we get everybody up there, we need the ambulance coming in the back way? I think that's all looking for, and like I said before, typically, they put the 2 posts there, they lock it, they get their own key to it, and may never get open.
Okay, I just want to
Yep.
raise that as an issue.
We'll get you a key too. You're on the list.
Hold it off the car.
I'll submit these plans when I
Yeah.
get back.
Okay.
So you guys have them.
So you will submit them to us?
I will, apparently.
Okay. That's great, because I didn't hear the word again.
I didn't say again, I just.
I know you didn't, Rob. I'm commending you.
You want the colored ones? I can email you everything as well if you want. I have PDFs of all of this.
Let me ask you one question. If you've got to do it, fine. Send it to Kate and I'll
I'm the
get
one that's
mine.
on the floor.
Yeah.
So you see the road goes up to the castle and splits into the Y.
Yeah.
The one that goes off to the left, it has like a little spur on the end of it. Yeah, how wide is that at that point?
Probably like 10 feet.
All right, so,
Goes up to the garage.
so if that turned off to the left and split those 2 houses right there as just an access road, that would solve your 750-foot problem.
Just as a fire road.
Just as a fire road, and then Barrakai is off the map, you don't have to do the big loop. You just make a quick 15-foot fire access road right there.
Talking about
It's a long road,
Yeah. The driveway's like right here.
long road through.
Off the cul-de-sac.
And if
Look at
not,
it, because see,
So,
loop in-
okay,
I
right in the
like loop
backyard of
ones
those.
rather
a couple issues with that.
Yeah.
That's not in play. It's private.
than- No, so You know how we showed
That
the
is not in
sketch
play,
where
all there,
there's
that's private, so to have a,
road.
We'd have to do an
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
the road
this
went
would be a
like
big
this.
time thing, and I don't know
And
how
it
many people would be in
connected
favor
to-
of doing that, at least
No,
I
I'm
wouldn't,
sorry.
because you got too many private
like
individuals
this.
along there that could say no.
I like
David
it.
doesn't want to do it because it keeps.
Yeah, and,
I know, but I feel bad.
That whole bottom subdivision is
Well,
off
the-
the table right now.
I think
Yeah.
it makes more sense to disrupt this.
We'd have to give it an access,
and,
emergency access. easement.
okay, and you're gonna have to build it pretty good.
Yeah. Well, from what he was saying, build it.
Yeah, if you built it, I mean, it's gonna have to be a road that they accept that they can drive their trucks on, whereas if you're up at the top, the Barakaya, you're not doing anything more than you're gonna do right now.
Let's go talk to him.
Look at it, look at anything, but it's two different ownerships there, I guess.
Oh, there is?
Well, there will be.
At some point. We could look at it, it's an option to look at, but we'll go talk to the deputy chief. Joe will set something up, you can come with us. You're around most of the days.
Just set something up and give me a call, let me know when it is. Give me a couple of dates.
You wanna come?
Yeah, no sweat, Rob. I'll be right there. Me and you, have fun.
Okay.
You all set? Okay.
Good.
Everybody all set? Okay. We'll continue this to March 1st at 7:30 PM.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I think we're done.
We're not done, are we?
We
talked
still
about-
have some more stuff, right? Correspondence?
Just the,
Oh, the,
correspondence,
There's
right?
nothing, it's just there, request for comment? Request for comment.
We don't have anything.
Burns Avenue?
I'm sorry?
Burns Avenue, there's nothing easy about Burns Avenue.
That's why I thought.
CBA has,
why is it every time I
he's
come
got
to
his,
the meeting, I'm very organized, when I leave
yeah,
the
it's
meeting,
going
I'm the
for
same
a,
way. I come in thinking I have everything, in, and then I'm like scrambling.
floodplain.
I get home, the thing looks like, how did, you know, what, just a lot of it.
It's Thursday morning, right? I usually do this, I check the agenda, and I go and and today I just grabbed the files.
Got to tell him. Okay, make a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Shut her off before someone starts.